And we're live. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing good.
Pretty okay. Hey, I had an issue with the microphone a little bit ago, but got that worked out.
Outstanding. I know Spork said he'll be here in a little bit. He just woke up, so you know how
Well,
that is.
man, he must either sleep late or he lives in a completely different time zone.
He actually's been having to work nights to train a new guy.
Oh, okay, that explains it.
Yeah. And I know I took a nap earlier. I was like, I'm in a bad mood. I'm not streaming this way. Nap. Then end up waking up like, what time is it? What year is it? Did I pull a Rumpelstiltskin?
Yeah, I mean that must be one heck of a nap if you do that.
Oh, dude, I slept like half the day. I'm sorry. So when you sleep like 4 hours out of your day, taking a nap, that shows you were tired.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
But anyway, now to talk about some comic books or whatever else we feel like talking about. It's meeting of the minds. This is basically we talk about anything, including comics, but not exclusively comics. And yes, I like that. I was like, "Where's our special guest?" Well, besides Tim Lim,
Hello.
I sent out the link. Haven't heard back from him. We shall see. Hopefully, he gets a hold of us soon. If not, I think we're all perfectly fine with having Tim on the show.
Cool. Who was the other guest supposed to be?
Sporkman, proper Sporkman.
The proper Sporkman. Okay, yeah.
Yes, you know, the guy that actually is the superhero.
Yeah, not just a writer.
Yes, exactly.
Now, why would we talk about the writer?
He should be in shortly. But, you know, it was one of those, having the actual superhero here would have been awesome.
Oh, we also have Bob Jones.
Listen here, America. When Bob Jones is in the house, it is all about keeping America so free and patriotic. I am so not doing that tonight. So not doing that.
Yeah, don't hurt your throat there.
Oh, God.
Yeah. My throat gets.
Go ahead, man.
My throat hurts hearing you say it.
Oh, God. That's why I'm like, the weekends, really, you want out now? Excuse me. But, no, the weekends, like I was telling Matt, that once I get more Patreons at certain tier level, I'm going to start doing every other Sunday videos that are exclusive to them as Bob Jones. But other than that, nah. The weekends are for me. My voice, I'll do that for you Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, my voice gets to heal.
Yeah, smart man.
Yep.
Cause, oh man, that gets really painful really fast.
I can imagine.
So what's our topic for today?
Well, let's talk about what's been going on with Alterna, man.
A lot.
Right. Actually, no, let's hold off because we were talking about the distribution problems with your book, Black Ops and whatnot, and Antarctic and Diamond's mess.
Yeah, so long story short, it's not Antarctic's fault. If you're listening and you're having trouble getting some of these books, there's something going on with Diamond. Diamond is the one who, the moment that the books entered the warehouse, it's their responsibility to put the date of release into their system so that nationwide people can actually look it up and see, oh, in stores at this time. And some people were probably shocked this week to see that Rags was not in their pull box, despite the fact that it was listed in Diamond as being out this week. Same thing with Black Ops issue 2. Luckily, we've actually had it come to stores. People already got it, but there are still some stores that got incomplete shipments. So instead of getting the full number that they ordered, they only got like a certain number of them. And it's not because they were underprinted. It's because they were undershipped, especially from like the Diamond warehouse in Memphis. So a lot of people from the South were hitting me up saying that their stores didn't carry it. So I think that obviously put pressure on I don't want to say pressure on your store, but pressure your store into contacting Diamond and saying, hey, what's going on here? Why are you guys dropping the ball? you know, with Black Ops 2, we had like a major spoiler at the end that a lot of people found out by leaks, which is kind of cool. But on the other hand, people wanted to find it out on their own. And it's like, well, too bad, so sad, got spoiled for you. Good thing is that we're still on that first printing, so hopefully your stores pick it up. But yeah, lots of ball dropping going on, and I don't mean that in the way it sounds. I meant like dropping the ball.
You did it.
Yeah. Ooh.
But no, that's I don't know. I went the day after it was supposed to come out to get it from my LCS, and they're like, "Nope, we don't have it." I'm all like, hashtag what? And they're like, "Yeah, sold out." Like you've got to be kidding me. Nope.
Now, if they say it's sold out, that's a bit different. That's good. Like if it's sold out, yeah, that's awesome. But we've had some people who said that they sold out and they wouldn't even special order, and it's like you should be able to because we checked and the warehouse is full. So they have copies, which means that as long as
they are trying to get a hold of a copy for me. They're trying.
Good. Yeah, that's great. That's good to hear.
Like I'm looking. Like I said, I still got to read the first one.
Of Black Ops?
Yeah, the first.
Oh yeah. Make sure you read the first one before you read the second one.
But at the same time, I'm just like, I don't know if you ever do a con nearby. I'm so like, once I get even if I have to pick up one of the copies you have at a con, I'm getting a hold of My Hero Macadamia.
Yeah, we're probably going to do a convention in Oklahoma, our first one next year. There's actually a couple good ones between Tulsa and Oklahoma that we've been told to go to. So we might have to pull the trigger on that. That's actually one of the states around us that we still haven't been to yet as far as conventions are concerned.
Nice. Granted, it'll be one of those. I'll be like, ha! You plebs don't know this guy. I do.
We had a couple of people at that recent one that John Malin and Richard and Matt Weldon and I were at. I mean, we had a lot of YouTubers, a lot of Twitter people. It was a lot of fun. We threw Whataburger shindigs, and it was a blast. You stop by a Comicsgate booth, and it's a party, basically.
That is awesome.
Whereas an SJW booth, it's nothing but sadness and loneliness.
Well, at the SJW booths, they don't treat you very well. I don't want to say that every person I know in the industry who's like a far left person, because, you know, frankly, the majority of them are. But we've encountered a couple who are just mean. Like, you know, we'll watch them interact with like a customer, and the customer will drop like $500 on original art. And then as the customer is walking away, they'll turn to us and be like, you know, blah, 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 that guy. And I'm just like, dude, that guy just gave you $500. The least you could do is just not say any of that stuff, you know? Like, that to me just shows a very basic lack of empathy and human understanding.
And respect for your customers.
Jeez, no kidding.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, if you think about it this way, it's like, you have like doctors, and some doctors don't have bedside manner, that's for sure. But one thing that doctors by and large do have is they have respect, because one, they respect their profession, and two, they respect the fact that they're in care of their patients. So it doesn't even matter how rude they're being treated. It doesn't matter what they do that day. It's the idea that you put aside any personal beef that you might have, because that's not your job. Your job is to care. And our job as writers and artists is to entertain. And if people are paying money to be entertained, then that's the transaction that occurs. And I don't care if I don't care if you are strange. I don't care if you have hobbies that don't align with mine. If you are paying me and you walk away, then I do not talk about you at all, because that is not, first of all, that's very judgmental. And second of all, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here at a convention to sell and to talk, to meet people, to make friends. And that's it. So there's a fundamental lack of human understanding amongst a lot of creators.
Well, but at the same time, like I've stated before, and it drives me nuts, you're talking about far left ideologues who agree with people like Chuck Wendig, who went on Twitter, had this big old long TED talks about how he creates art, he doesn't create a product. And you know, Aaron Sparrow had to quickly smack his ass back down, like, no, you do create a product. It is artistic in nature, but it is still a product meant to be sold.
Yeah, so that argument reminds me of Thomas Kinkade. So a lot of people in the arts, they hate Thomas Kinkade because they think he sold out. And Thomas Kinkade, they call him the artist of light because his paintings and his art are very renowned worldwide because they're pretty. They're very pretty. And Thomas Kinkade wanted one of his paintings in every house in America. And if that meant selling prints for like $50 or $20 or however low it might be, he was going to be in every house. And people give him flack for it. They're like, what a sellout. And I was like, yeah, but before he died, guess what? He's in pretty much every house in America that collects art. I mean, why? His art's affordable. He paints, he creates a product. It is artistic in nature, but he accomplished the goal, which is to give it to consumers. That's how any transaction works. No artist ever, unless you're creating for yourself and you're not intending to sell anything, there's no price tag to it. As long as there's a price tag to your art, you're creating a product, whether or not you want to see it that way or not.
Well, and that's exactly the point is it's comic books, yes, they're art. Like, take for instance, your art's awesome. Like, I'm looking forward to, like, for instance, Trump Space Force. If you look at a lot of the drawings and everything, or the art from the book, that you have out, I should say, you can tell, like, you put love into it, you put care into it, but you at the same time understood that it was still something that you wanted to get it out there for as many people to read it as possible. You didn't stylize it in a way that only you would like it or a select few. You tried to have it in a way that would be as inclusive to as many people as possible.
Right, exactly. If it were something I was making for myself, I don't know, it would be kind of like some fever dream abstract drawing where everyone looks super deformed. I mean, I would cater to me, but it's the idea that I'm not catering to me. I'm catering to people who will potentially buy it. And same thing with Chuck Dixon. I mean, the way he writes it is kind of it's like the way that Mark Pellegrini wrote My Hero Macadamia. It is going to, I think, appeal more to people who are right of center and your Trump voters for sure, just by nature of the subject matter. But the funny thing is that the book itself is not political. It is basically just kind of like an action comedy. There's some linings of political detail in it, but it's not specifically geared towards politicians or pundits or anyone. It's designed to be kind of universally enjoyed, even if you're on the left. I think what makes us do the Trump books is twofold. One, Donald Trump is a unique character. He's very entertaining. Regardless of whether you love him or hate him. I just happen to love him, but he's entertaining. If he wasn't, the media wouldn't focus on him 24/7 because he's so unique in that nature. And then the second one is the cultural component. When you have so much anti-Trump material out there, guess what? There is a market for people who want pro-Trump stuff, and that's why we do it. But the book itself is not specifically written per se to be 100% for the pro-Trump crowd. It's written for people who like action comedies. So even in that instance, as a work of art, it's not pigeonholed.
Not just that, it's meant for people who enjoy a good satire. Prime example, My Hero Macadamia, the thing that I've heard a lot of people point out is very satirical. And that's what I expect from, Space Forces. I expect it to be very satirical and poking fun at a lot of things going on currently.
Yeah, exactly. And not just that, but every time we do a book, we're almost trying to beat the number of Easter eggs that we can throw in it. Black Ops 1 and 2, we really didn't put that many into it because there wasn't much room. Plus, it was more, it's actually more serious in nature, ironically, given the subject matter. But Trump Space Force, I mean, there's a lot of Easter eggs in it. It's a lot of fun. If you like science fiction or if you like a lot of science fiction / fantasy, you're going to see a lot of, you have to keep an eagle eye because visually we put a lot of unique details into it.
Definitely. I will know I have made it in the comic scene when I get an Easter egg in a Tim Lim book. That's all I got to say.
Well, believe it or not, I actually keep kind of a list of people, and I just go down the line, and it's like, who haven't I put into it yet? And so it's basically just like waiting your turn. So patience is a virtue. So I think I'm coming up to that point, and so it's just a matter of time. We already have like our 2019 slate nailed down, so that train's not going to be ending anytime soon.
Awesome. And that's hilarious. Like, you have a list of references and YouTubers are on there. Well, I know you did Edwin. That is expected because Edwin's like the Jesus figure, if you will, the Messiah figure of comics, because he's just so centered and so.
I wouldn't go far to call him that. He's more like the Stan Lee. He's a cameo character that I feel would be just funny to put in every book.
Well, maybe not Jesus, but like a Buddha-esque character.
Okay, sure.
I'm trying to pull from like that very spiritual, enlightened type figure. Always, you never see him mad. You always see him more. You know what I mean?
He's pretty level-headed. He's very cool.
That's what I was trying to convey. It just came out wrong.
Yeah, that's fine. I understood what you were getting at. Was that who? Someone was trying to say something.
No, Matt. Did you have something to say, or is your mic giving you problems again?
No, I've been listening.
Like always.
Well, yeah. I mean, other people have such interesting things to say that it's just I don't want to interrupt.
Oh well, you could interrupt, dude. I mean, I will not have my feelings hurt.
Yeah, I won't either.
Well, it's more like I want you guys to finish up what you're saying so that I can hear what you have to say. You know.
Okay.
I guess it's that I don't want to interrupt people based on the fact that I am interested in what they have to say.
Yeah, okay.
Or you don't want to end up repeating something that somebody's already saying, because I know I've had that happen to myself even.
That too.
Like, I'm trying to pay attention, but y'all went on and I waited, and now I can't remember, and I'm just ending up repeating it. Damn it! Trying to get the train back on. Get on the track! Track! Screw it! Flips table.
I wouldn't go that far.
I think the other conversation that people wanted to have was the whole Alterna thing that kind of blew up over the last 48 hours. I honestly, I mean, I don't know what I can say that hasn't already been covered. I think it's just, okay, so a lot of people ride the fence because they're thinking to themselves, am I pro-Comicsgate or am I anti-Comicsgate? And then Richard actually came up with a very good framework. He said that you have Comicsgate, you have anti-Comicsgate, and then you have what's called Comics. Oh, what did he call it? Comics Gateway, I think is the name he called it. And he said Comics Gateway are people who are not necessarily Comicsgate, but they're not on the other side either, and they're sympathetic towards us. And he gave two examples, like Blake Northcott and Brian Edward Hill. These are people who are very level-headed. They have been more pro-Comicsgate than anti-Comicsgate. And most importantly is they're friendly. They fit the model of what we want professionals to be, regardless of whether they're Comicsgate or not. And so in my mind, Peter Simeti is definitely in that camp. He's definitely like this Comics Gateway individual. And my problem is this. I like that model, but what's going to happen is these anti-Comicsgate people, they're going to end up pushing those Peter Simeti types into being Comicsgate by virtue of their vitriol. A guy like Peter Simeti, who is just wanting as many customers as he can get, if he is losing customers on the SJW side and he knows that these are people not buying his books, he's going to do the smart thing, and he's going to go for the markets where he is going to be accepted and where people are putting down money for his product. So those people who might be listening who are anti-Comicsgate, you guys might want to rethink your strategy, because that did not, I mean, for the short term, it looked tough on Peter and Alterna, but in the long term, it really put a spotlight on him and his product, and he's going to have to do some thinking in terms of what his next step is going to be.
Oh, yeah. And on top of that, real quick before I continue, sup, Spork?
What's up, man? Hey, did you guys see he just posted about he's got over 5,000 orders in the last day.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Good for him.
Yeah, he said he is so packed right now. It's going to take him a little bit to get people their stuff, but yeah, he goes normal 200 to 300 orders in a day. He had 5,000 in 2 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, eat it, SJWs, just eat it.
Yeah, and it's like it kind of makes me feel like I contributed to that, because the whole call to action
Oh yeah.
that I went and put out Thursday night. That's still somewhat trending a little bit. Well, amongst our circles anyway. It's not like thousands, but amongst our circles, I'm trying to find it again because it was like almost 200 likes and getting close to 80 retweets, which for me is damn good. 186 likes, 72 retweets.
Dadgum, that is a lot.
Yeah.
For me, yeah.
Well, not only on top of that, I don't know if you saw, but Malin picked up on that, and so did a couple other people, and they kind of backed up what you were saying. Malin the other night, he actually wrote a retweet, and he's like, "Hey, let's look at this person. You know, he's like, he's got a great idea. Let's support them." And I think that really, that hit the boom. You know, and that's what really a lot of people. You did a great thing getting that out. You know, and I think everybody was under like mind. It's just one tweet kind of just pulled us all together and say, "Hey, let's do that." I mean, I ordered the whole Wicked Righteous series. You know, that was one of the only ones besides Zero Jumper. I'm waiting to get the whole collection on. So great stuff.
I know I got 10 books coming in. I'm looking forward to it. I got the first 2 of the Wicked Righteous. Give me a second. I'll tell you exactly what I got coming in, just because why not?
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, the first 2 of Wicked Righteous, first issue of Scrimshaw, first 2 of the 12, I do believe it's
13.
13. No,
Yeah.
no, XII, that's 12.
Oh, I thought it was 13. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the 12. Psycho Code, because I've been hearing a lot of good stuff about that. The first issue of that. First issue of Mr. Crypt, because I've been hearing a lot of good things about that.
Good series.
First issue of Mother Russia. First issue of Metaphase, and the first issue of Eden.
Nice.
So, I think I got a good assortment coming in.
I picked up about 7 books from them, all 4 issues of the Chair, and the 3 issues of Tinseltown.
Nice. Yeah, I recently did an order from them. I got their graphic novels just about 2 months ago. Hold on, let me grab them here.
Got some dead air going.
Yeah, he was like, "Let me grab." So he's like, "Let me grab them." And so we're all like waiting patiently.
Sorry. But yeah, so I ordered the Chair. I ordered Lilith Dark, which really sucks about that creator that he's doing. I don't know if you saw Chris put a big post out about him leaving.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh man, dude, I love Lilith Dark. I think that's a great series." And I'm kind of sad to see him kind of do that, but you know, but then you know, I picked up the graphic novel of Mother Russia, Novo. I don't know if you guys have read that graphic anthology. It's kind of Novo is kind of his sci-fi type anthology, and then I got his If crime anthology, and then I got his If other sci-fi anthology. The thing is, what's really cool is like I like that they're small manga size on 2 of them, you know, so they're nice, good like thick reads and stuff like that. And then the other ones are kind of like a odd size of graphic novels, but still, I wanted to support him. I mean, he had a really nice sale running. Ended up spending like $60 and got like over 10 different titles. So,
guys.
Yeah, we're still here.
I just found. Oh my God, guys! I just found out there's Zelda poker cards. I shut up and take my rubies. Shut up and take my rubies.
So,
like no, I'm on Twitter because I just sent a Slick McJackass or Dick McJackass. Yeah, Dick McJackass a invite, and I saw that and was like, oh my God, I want those in my life. Sorry.
No problem. We all know that feeling.
Well, have you seen the other one that just popped up on my Entertainment Earth subscribers list? But it's a Master Sword umbrella.
That is awesome.
Yeah, just
Oh,
look it
wow.
up. Just type in Master Sword Umbrella. That thing looks awesome. I have a what do I call him? Brother-in-law. Yeah, my brother-in-law is a really big Zelda fan, and I'm probably gonna get that for him for Christmas. That looks too good to pass up.
I'm looking for it now. I'm just like, oh shite, I need this.
Can I be honest with you guys? I
No.
actually never kind of got into Zelda.
Well, if it makes you feel better, Sporkman, I have not been into Zelda since Link to the Past. So that's when I owned a Super Nintendo, and that was it. So that's as far as my Zelda lore goes. But I mean, just based on those three properties, Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, and what was the second one? Legend of Zelda 2, Link's
Majora's
Adventure.
Mask?
No, Link's Adventure. Is it Link's Adventure? I think the one for Nintendo. Those are the only three that I've ever played.
I mean, I'm not knocking anybody who
Adventure
who
of
loves
Link.
them.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Not knocking anybody who doesn't like them. You know, I'm all for that. So.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
no. Somewhere amongst my ROMs that I have backed up, I have, which to me I'm torn because Link to the Past is good, but Ocarina of Time is also good, and like the ironic thing, and I'm glad I've held on to it, like because it's not mine, I can't sell it. But at the same time, the guy it belongs to can't sell it either. I'm sure once I find it real quick. But the Sega, or not Sega, but the GameCube,
Mhm.
the Ocarina of Time and Master Quest bit. Ocarina
See, that game is what actually ruined Zelda for me.
of Time?
Yeah.
How so?
I just did not care for the whole aspect of you know you have to blow on a musical element to make yourself
Hola.
travel.
Not care
for the whole aspect of hey, background.
Yep.
A musical element to make yourself
Hola.
travel.
Come, Dick! Please stop it!
Come on.
Man,
Stop if you have to.
I always do that. Every time I need to remember. Damn it! I don't know.
That's wow.
See, that's what you get when you drink too much soy there in Gotham. Okay.
Exactly. When you bring the soy into your live streams, that's when you know you got a problem, America.
And that's when we get cut out by the soy companies.
Exactly. And the Reticulous Nine overlords.
Led by Bendis.
Comics Invasion. Yes, led by Bendis and his CB Sobolski bot. Oh, I was looking. I passed over it like 5 times.
Yeah.
But like, I feels the dumbs. I feels the dumbs. But there we go.
Oh wow, I found
So-
something cool.
Hey Tim, I wanted to ask you something here. So do you think, in all honesty, I mean, do you think, like a lot of these creators that have left Peter or made these statements, do you think they're being irrational, or do you think they're just kind of just, listening to the other side and their lies?
So I don't believe that they're being irrational. I think what they're trying to do is by distancing themselves from Alterna, they're trying to curry favor from the big two.
Oh, okay.
Because that's kind of like showing your cred. That's like saying, hey, I'm not affiliated with this company that apparently likes Comicsgate. Hire me. Problem with that is that, as we have shown, working for the big two, it's get woke, go broke. I mean, you have these people who, I mean, they're living in apartments with 2 or 3 other roommates because they can't make it on their own.
Yeah.
They can't make a living that way. So that's what they have to do. And now part of it, I think, is ideologically driven, of course, but there's a reason why. For example, you have whenever you say who was the most prominent person from Alterna to basically turn on them, you think of Jennifer de Guzman. Why is it she who is the first one that we think of? Because she's a woman and she doesn't need no Alterna, and I am going to put that out there. But you know how it is with the hiring right now between Marvel and DC. They
Yeah.
have this group of marginalized, quote unquote, marginalized people. So as a woman, I'm sure that subconsciously there's a part of her that's thinking, well, I'm probably going to get picked up by the big two, or my buddies who work there are going to spread the word. Like this lady's cool. She left Alterna. Let's find her some work. I kind of won't be surprised if in the next 3 months we hear something like, "Hey guys, I'm working on Squirrel Girl" or whatever, because she showed her cred, and now she's going to be inducted into the fold, which she probably was already. I just think it's just crappy, like even Peter Samedi said, "I went to bat for you on more than one occasion, and this is the thanks that I get." And it's like, yes, because that is kind of like the SJW thing. There is no loyalty, there is no fealty to people who have helped you in the past. And I know it because I have my own stories of how I've been burned by SJWs too on a professional level. But that's just how their thinking goes. I feel more sorry for the guys, because there's a lot of guys I know who do the same things, but it's like, you guys are not marginalized. You're essentially burning a bridge, and there's not another bridge to cross. So good luck with that. Let your ideology be the death of you.
Yeah, well, for me, the fact that he went to bat for her and made sure that her book got out there and all this, that, and the other and whatnot, it's just, you know what I mean? It's deplorable. It's sad. It shows the level of childishness. It shows that they have no interest in creating a sustainable market because, okay, yeah, she may get on at Marvel, but what happens when, something actually does happen and one of the SJWs decides to turn on her? Who's going to go to bat for her then? She's already burnt the bridge with with Peter. She's already put herself in a situation where no one's going to want to go to bat for her.
Yeah.
And that goes for anyone. When you do that publicly, especially, you basically say to people, you may go to bat for me, but I'll turn on you in a drop of a hat.
And what was it that... I mean, I've looked at the tweets that Peter Samedi put out on behalf of Alterna. What in there was controversial? Like, there was not a single thing taken in the context of writing that was controversial. Even the statement that he put out about Alterna's social media policy and their basically code of ethics, it was like, if you're going to be on Twitter, do not block customers, because we know that blocking customers means it has a social stigma attached to it, because it means that for some reason they don't like you. That is what that means. And if you're going to be representing Alterna, even as a freelancer, you can't be caught doing that. Don't they realize that almost every industry, every profession has a code of ethics? I work in the medical field. We have a code of ethics. I have worked several jobs in the retail sector. There's a code of ethics. There is employee training. This is not something new.
Yeah.
Only in the world of comics is this anathema. Is this the most bizarre thing whatsoever? And not just that, but DC Comics, when they put out their code of ethics guidelines a few months ago, no one batted an eye. So what is it, We're not stupid. We are pretty well read in terms of getting our real news versus our fake news. And I'm sorry, but that's fake news. All of that hullabaloo about the Alterna code of conduct policy.
Well, it's like the one Polygon reporter, I can't even pronounce his name, I'm not going to, but where he went and tweeted out the alt-right comics for, in quotes, everyone. Like, that right there, that should be a fireable offense. Because I know, working at like Walmart and whatnot, if you were to say something that could be easily put back onto Walmart, basically you created a big public stink and it caused trouble for Walmart. Even if it was just you and your personal account, you still caused problems for Walmart. Walmart's still getting called and questioned as to why they are still employing you. You will get fired, especially if you say something like the whole Robbie Rodriguez bit. I pointed out to some people on Facebook, because they were dumb and had the link to their Facebook conversation on their Twitter. So I was like, I'm not going to get blocked on my Twitter because I want to be able to, comment on your stupidity. But I'll go to your Facebook and talk. You can block me there. I gives no fucks. But this dude was literally talking about how give me a sec. I will bring up the entire thread because I don't use Facebook that much, so it's still right there.
That person, a lot of these people who are critical of Comicsgate, if you look at what they've conducted, of how they've conducted themselves, even in a professional basis, it's so shady. I mean, you have that guy. We'll just call him Sandwich Boy. Sandwich Boy. I mean, this is the guy who went to see Hamilton, and in the same breath, asked people for money to, I think, get a ride home and to get a sandwich. How did you get tickets to Hamilton? I can't even afford tickets to Hamilton. Are you kidding me? I mean, living off a budget, even though like my wife and I are still gainfully employed, thank God, we don't buy tickets to see Hamilton. I mean, that's
Right?
that's not something that's in our budget. I mean, and yet you have this guy, an avowed socialist, who lives in like I'm sorry, but someone needs to like rescue his rabbits because there's like so much rabbit feces out there. I mean, I have 5 rabbits and I corral them pretty good. So I'm just gonna say from one rabbit owner to the other, you're just a terrible person. But I mean, for him to put that stuff out there, any person who is looking at all of this objectively sees that the derangement is clearly on one side. That's it. End of story. There is not much else to say. I honestly don't waste too much time with these people because they're here to make my life miserable, and frankly, I don't have time to be miserable. I'm too busy staying busy, which is something that they apparently don't have. They don't have any employment, so they waste their time, all their time, just starting stuff up on Twitter.
Well, like this dude, right? What's best to do? Like his mind you, his Twitter handle something like always punch Nazis, but he's always like, what's the best to do with Comicsgate? You think keep arguing with them, fight back, and show them how they are shit heels, or just mute and block them and continue to push them out of your sphere, and and see that they continue to push out until no one is paying any attention to their bullshit anymore. This is literally what I posted him. You mean the space we let you in and you've been trying to force us out ever since? With the picture of the cycle of SJW inclusivity. You've all heard it. I don't need to go into that whole bit again.
Here's the thing that really frustrates me, and so Tim, I know you and I've been here. You've been here a little bit longer than I have. I pretty much joined right after you did. When they basically said, "Hey, go out and create your own comics," so we do that, and then they still follow us wherever we go. Because you started the thing with Thump, and really early on, you were one of the first people, and then Richard and stuff like that. It's like for everything we do, say go create your own thing. So okay, we create our own thing, but that's not good enough for them.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. When I started the persona of Thump, part of that persona was basically copying what the president would do, which to me was really funny. I mean, the president is a master troll. So honestly, there were times in the very beginning when part of what the SJWs in Marvel and DC needed, they needed someone to call them out under bullshit. So I thought this is a perfect opportunity. I'm going to call them out under bullshit. But success does something funny to you. Success mediates you because you realize, well, I'm successful. I don't really need to pay much attention to these people who aren't. Let them die in their let their profession die in a garbage heap. I mean, I don't care. I'm going to move on to do other things. And so I'm almost never on the offensive. Whenever someone does something, whenever someone writes a book that's terrible, I don't even pay any attention to it. I'm like, fine, let their sales numbers go down. Doesn't affect me whatsoever. But what happened within this week was these people who I just left alone in their spheres, now they're coming over to us. So it's like what you were saying. These people are like, okay, go and make your own books. Fine. We do. We've made several of these books. We funded them with Indiegogos. Now they're coming to us and complaining. Now they're trying to invade our sphere and tell us that we're doing it wrong. We don't care. I mean, like, that blue-haired weirdo came after me earlier this week, and I played around with her for a bit because it was entertaining. And then afterwards, I just started ignoring her because I'm like, you're just miserable. Your social engagement is terrible. I've seen how much attention you get. It's not the attention that I'm sure you want. So you're just going to be in that corner kicking and screaming. Meanwhile, like, I'm over here building a spaceship with the president. And me and my rowdy friends, we're going to get on board. We're going to have a good time. And then guess what? Next year, we're going to do something else, and it's going to be another fun time. And what I like about Comicsgate, whether you are Comicsgate adjacent, Comics Gateway, whatever you might want to label yourself, as long as you're not anti-Comicsgate, we're the people that have fun. We're the people doing live streams. We're the ones on YouTube. We're the ones cutting up a rug. These people, if they wanted to win, there's nothing stopping them from starting their own YouTube channels and having their own conversations and stuff. I mean, hell, all of our conversations are public. You can type in my name or Meeting of the Minds or Sporkman onto YouTube, and you can find video after video of us having fun. I mean, you type any one of these other people in there, and there's nothing. It's like cobwebs and
Crickets?
cockroaches and crickets. Yeah, these people just don't know how to have fun. And honestly, the new sphere, the new paradigm of comics has to involve a very public and social dimension where you see creators having fun. Because here's the funny thing: it doesn't really matter, in my opinion. It doesn't matter necessarily the quality of your book. If the quality of your book is not necessarily the most professional thing, but let's say it's cheap, and let's say I like you, I am gonna buy it because I'm having fun. Like people, they interact with me, they have a good time, and they have a product out there that's within my price range. Yeah, I'm gonna back it. I mean, I'm gonna back it simply because this is part of the entertainment. It's a whole experience. It's not just the book itself at this point.
Oh yeah, and straight from chat, like Starvelion said it best. Really, he was like, he said, gotta find it again. They said we have secret forums in response to you. We're having very open conversations, which we are. They said, and they're the ones doing the shit in secret, which is also very true. How many times has something that they've said or done in secret come out, and everyone's like, "Well, that's shitty. Why the hell are they doing that?"
Yeah, not surprised either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing is, I was reading, I ended up having to block the whole Bill Sienkiewicz thread because it was becoming cancerous. And one person was complaining, these guys, they all have their own YouTube channels, and, they're all about YouTube and being out there in presence. Why are they like that? Well, it's like, that's the way you should be. What's the old adage? Sunlight shines a good disinfectant. You can't air out your opinions in public discourse. Why do you have any public, why do you have any opinion at all? You can't support your side. You need, what I mean? You can't just be in an echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about transparency.
And these people, if you're not following Professor Geek, you guys should, because Professor Geek is, I would say, besides like Doug Ernst, he's one of the most academic people that we have on our side. And he's very much he's very objective, and he's able to eloquate a lot of this stuff better than anyone I know. And one of the things that a lot of these SJWs have that is, to me, it's very disturbing, is they don't know they can't argue, and they can't critically think very well at all. I mean, it's to this point, it's so predictable that any fight you have with an SJW, to me, it looks like that scene in The Matrix where Neo is like fighting Agent Smith, and he's doing it with one hand, just like countering all of their blows, because you already know what they're gonna say: racist, sexist, homophobe, transphobe, bigot, xenophobe, phobophobe, istophobe, whatever phobe. That's all it is. That's all that they say. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, if I were an SJW, I mean, this is what I think my next game plan should be. I should infiltrate one of their little secret groups, and I'll be like, guys, if you pay me $100 an hour, I will literally tell you how to argue with our side. And I'll say, one way you do it is, this is the list of words you never use at all. Well, why don't you use those words? Because those are ad hominem attacks.
Yep.
What's an ad hominem attack? Well, I don't know. You should have learned that when you were in your freshman year of college. An ad hominem attack is just mudslinging. You're not really winning an argument. Well, what about they are like racists? Like I look, they don't have any black people on their side. Well, what about this person? He's black. Yeah, but that's just the one. Well, haven't you heard of Karl Popper's theory of black swans? No, what's a black swan? Well, Karl Popper said, how do you disprove the statement, all swans are black, or all swans are white? Yeah, find one black swan. What? Why only one? Because the statement was, all swans are black, or all swans are white. If you find one black swan, that automatically dispels your whole argument. I'm sorry, but that's That's philosophy 101. That's critical thinking 101. You say these people are misogynists. Okay, well, what about all you have to do is just find one. You can call them a token if you want. That's still an ad hominem attack. We have found the one person who dispels your notion. And that's why I get so sick of them being like, they're racist. Or they're white. Well, I don't care if they say they're racist. That's a little bit more. That's a little. You can kind of argue that from a certain standpoint. But when they say like they're all white nationalists, it's like we literally only have to show you one non-white guy, and that automatically disproves your theory. I am sorry, it does. That's just the truth of it. So I feel like I can make a lot of money just giving these guys remedial critical thinking classes and help their argument. But they lose. I am sorry, they lose every single argument that they have. I have looked at it up and down. Even the smartest among them is frankly an idiot.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you won't make any
so
money from them since they'll never take a class anyway.
Yeah, I think Professor Geek for his Patreon, he should have like the SJW Critical Thinking 101 tier. Like you pay him $100 and he just goes over the list of the common ones like ad hominem fallacy, fallacy of relative privation, Texas sharpshooter fallacy, confirmation bias. I mean, it's just one after one, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't have time on Twitter to show you how stupid you are. Just leave us alone. We're having fun. You got Sporkman creating his thing. You got me creating my thing. We're just out here hustling and trying to get some friends and get the community together, build networks, form friendships. That's it. That's all we're trying to do. If you don't want to interact with us, fine. Just stay over there with your legacy, your crappy legacy Marvel DC image characters, and I don't know, find your own audience. That's fine.
Is that, by the way, is that Michael Criticizer? Is that who is Professor Geek?
Yeah, Michael Kreitzer.
Okay, all right. I'm just following now, so that way I can add him in.
Yeah. Oh my
Sorry.
gosh, you're gonna love his channel. He's really really bright.
Well, what's funny is I don't know if you guys saw. Give me a second here. What's her name? Just a big cover artist who came out. She was conservative and got kicked out of. She just got basically blacklisted.
Who?
Give me a second here. I was talking with her last night.
Mindy Wheeler?
Who's that? Mindy Wheeler. Yeah.
Okay. She just
Mindy
followed me
Wheeler.
last night.
Let me look at. Do you know what her Twitter handle is?
It is Mindy Wheeler Art.
Let me see here.
Yep.
Her name does not ring a bell, but maybe her work will.
I'm gonna send it to you. This way you don't have to go looking for her.
So yeah,
Oh,
I
I
was
found her.
Yep,
Oh,
I was
okay.
talking with her last night, and I guess
Oh, she's been following me. I need to follow her back.
yeah, she basically came out last night. We were talking. She basically just got blacklisted for the most part from comics, and she put a post out last night on Facebook and also on Twitter about the fact of basically she just got blacklisted, and she's a female creator, and now she's pretty much blacklisted for coming out as a conservative.
Well, she is definitely on my side. I'm going to hire her for some work because she worked for Zenescope. That's really cool. So we know that she can draw ladies. I'm looking at some of her art. She does like traditional painting and stuff. Cool.
Yeah, she did it. She did a really good cover of X-23 that I really, really like from Marvel.
Well, this is really neat. I can't reveal it yet, but I personally know. Let's see. They're all on DC's side, actually. I know 3 artists for DC who are really high up there, who are on our side too, and they're literally just biding their time because they're like, this ship is sinking really fast. And I just told them, I said, hey, I'm just telling you, if you guys come out, it's gonna be big. Like, they're like, really? It's like, yes, because people, a lot of people were getting down. I mean, I think a lot of us had to talk Richard off a ledge, but basically what Doug Ernst said was, look how much we've gained within less than a year. If you think about it, a year ago, we basically started with 2 guys. You had Richard and you had Ethan. You had me, but I'm nowhere near as big as Ethan. I basically am like a baby compared to them. But here we are. You know, a year later, we talked one guy into coming to our side, Donald DeLay. We got John Malin to come out, and he's not even a conservative. Hell no, he's definitely like moderate libertarian.
Yeah.
Has liberal tendencies, and he turned really fast. So we got 2 people to jump ship. We have at least 5 that no one's talking about because we don't want to out them, but they're definitely on our side too. There's a big one who was on the left side, and he turned, and he's secretly helping us too. These people are scared. I think they're scared because they know that we have the better arguments and we have the better goal in mind. So I was like, we have a lot to be happy for. When I see these attacks, I don't get despondent. I'm like, this is really cool because you got this, you have Mindy Wheeler, and now you're telling me about her, and I'm following her, and I'm gonna be like, hey Mindy, I got this project coming out next year. Like, you want to work on it? Yeah. So
I want to bring her. I'm going to try to get her onto the channel to get her promoted. Her work is excellent. I'm like, what the hell is this? Just because you're conservative, and look, I don't care if you're liberal or transgender or whatever, but to be barred just because of your views, that is bullshit. That is not inclusive at all.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll tell you another one. So a lot of people say, well, we've seen your posts about transgenders. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but I do have a degree that is in the medical field. And I do not, and not just that, but I'm a Catholic. I do not believe that when I call you by the pronoun of the gender that you were born with, it would be me lying to myself to call you the preferred pronoun that you want. I'm sorry. I think that's ridiculous. Yeah. If you want to avoid me, you can. And honestly, if I were to meet you in person, maybe out of personal respect, I would call you by your preferred pronoun. But 1, your behavior is not helping with that whatsoever. 2, I do have to stick with moral principles. So if you don't like that, that's I am sorry, and I apologize for that if you're hurt. But I can't change that. I am sorry. But just to give you an example, Tamara Bonvillain has literally been coloring a lot of the books that I've liked over the years. I never once looked her up to see who they were or what they were. To me, if they were doing a good job, fine, so be it. But the moment you start throwing a ruckus, and I learned that you're actually Thomas Bonvillain, don't think I'm not gonna point that out because suddenly you want me to respect you. I respected you just by the merit of your work, not by what your sexual orientation was. So that is the problem. Is a lot of these people, they put their foots in their mouths because rather than trying to be recognized for their merit, they try to be recognized for something else, a qualifier that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't want to be known as that Asian artist. That's insulting, frankly, Yeah.
And so why would you want to be known as that transgender? I don't get it.
No, I mean, I do not get it either. And I think that Tamara, Thomas, whatever, I think that they would have a lot more credence to their name by there's a way that they could easily argue for themselves. For example, I do think that Tamara Bonvillain's coloring is legitimately good. I do think that when I see it, I do think it is done at a professional level. But I had to do some digging to find out that they were actually Thomas Bonvillain. But it's the same thing that happened with Brian and Mags Visaggio. You'll notice that right before they kind of became transgender, or before they made it like a big thing, they didn't have that much work. And then boom, the moment they get noticed, then they get a lot of work. If I were them, here's how I would approach it. I would be like, why is it that only after I came out that you started noticing what the quality of my work? Why was it that was what got me a job? That's messed up. And that is the onus of responsibility on Marvel, DC, and Image to look at that. Why is it that qualifier needed to be in place? It's like me. What if I don't know, what if I came out tomorrow and be like, hey, Marvel, DC, Image, like, I'm Asian. And they were like, ooh, we need to hire him because he's Asian. It's like, no, that's crappy. Hire me because my art is good. Hire me because I'm entertaining. Don't hire me because I'm Asian. That's stupid.
I think that, to me, in all honesty, that is sexist and that is transphobic and racist to hire someone just because they became that way. That's just my view. I don't care who you are. Like I give I watched Blair White quite a lot. I've watched her pretty much, when she was even in transitioning and stuff like that, and I had no problem with her. She was a great entertainer, great personality. She had good views on a lot of different subjects, and I supported her, and I give her pronoun she wants to be called. She is transgendered. I give the respect on the pronoun she wants to be called because she has earned that respect.
Right.
Great.
And a lot of it is based on what you were saying, respect. The reason why I called people actually, this is a funny thing. They're all men to women, and I don't think I know a single one that's the reverse. But if you are attacking fans, I will call you by honestly the gender that you were born with, and a lot of it like in when I'm in conversation, a lot of it's not intentional. So you'll hear me switch between he and she for someone like Tamara, and it's just my brain just picking the easiest shortcut. It's not actively thinking about what they are. But that's the thing, is that if these people wanted to strengthen their argument, they should point out, I mean, in a way, they should blow the whistle and say, hey, I think that I actually have the chops to succeed, and I couldn't succeed until I told people what I was. That's messed up. Like, that shows that these people have this fundamental bias. And bias can work both ways. It can be negative or it can be positive. And when you're trying to hire people just to prove you're not X, Y, and Z, like, that's the weirdest part. If I had a friend if I made a new friend and my new friend invited me to a party and announced me by saying, hey, this is Tim, this is my new Asian friend, I'm not an Asian phobe, see, I would be thinking to myself, okay, like, there's something else going on here, because who says that? Who announces someone that way?
Isn't it the same claim they level against us anyhow? That, just because you have one black friend doesn't mean you're not a white supremacist.
Right, exactly. And I mean, yeah.
But they said it first, so
Right.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And I do think that, I mean, like, for example, you do have some instances where that could potentially be used as a shield. So a lot of times that doesn't quite work, but it depends on your sincerity. For example, if you're saying, like, well, Tim, you're a white nationalist, and I say, no, I'm not. Like, I got this black friend over there. That's going to be pretty hard to prove. It all depends on the context of which you're saying it in terms of if that is something that you are, because honestly, that is the only way you disprove that, is you say, like, this is my friend over here and they're black. So maybe I might be racist. You're safer by doing that because you're not saying that. First of all, I'm not white, so that's kind of weird. Second of all, if I'm a white nationalist, that tends to have a political component to it, where you're hostile or you think negatively of black people. But the fact that I have a best friend or someone who's black, your terminology falls flat on its face. You might as well say racist, because that could mean, well, I like black people, but I don't like Eskimos. So right? you might be able to catch me on that one for sure. But there's just all these kind of argumentative and logistical gaps that they aren't really paying much attention to.
Also, you could also play the whole, well, I describe myself as trans Asian or trans black, or if you're a white person, and pull the whatever the one chick's name, the name of the one chick is who did the whole trans black thing.
Rachel Dolezal.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
She wanted the black privilege.
Yep.
She got a blackendectomy, as they say on South Park.
No, but it's actually pretty damn sad. Like, they talk about white privilege and all this shit, and like different privileges for different races. And well, I mean, if you're talking like implicit privilege just off the skin color alone, why are people purposely fraudulently claiming to be Native American or black or different races, to get benefits within certain communities or things like that? It's whack. Like, this is racism.
Mm-hmm.
That is de facto racism, actually.
Oh yeah. And I think that the black community in America, they get hit pretty hard with the media kind of shoving this low standard and expectation on them. That's just like it's insanely insulting.
Yeah, it's a soft bigotry of low expectations.
Oh yeah.
It's that whole concept of oh, there, you pitiful black people. Like, here's all these things we're gonna do for you. That's patronizing. I mean,
Oh.
like, if someone came to me and was like, here's $2,000, I'd be like, what's this for? You're Asian and you just can't make it. Well, why not? Because you're Asian. I'd be like, that's weird.
Which is funny because it's funny you say that, because what about the Asians that just had to basically do a lawsuit against Harvard for the whole basically having to have higher test scores than what the
Everybody else.
yeah. It's like, oh, wait. So you're saying the whole point of affirmative action is it's supposed to be that someone is, you know what I mean, able to do it.
Yeah. See, affirmative action served a purpose, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, when it was very hard. Here we are, 40, 50 years removed from civil rights time. And I still get that black people are treated unfairly in certain situations, and it does suck. And I think that a lot of that has to do with there's certain things going on with the community itself that they need to try to do things a little bit differently. And I think low unemployment was one of the big keys, to fixing a lot of the issues. But here we are now. I honestly think affirmative action now is different. It doesn't need to be, every people going to college should be the same points. Nobody should get more points separately from everybody else. Everybody should have the same SAT scores no matter what level they go into. You know what I mean? Into college and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. And to me, it's just ridiculous because of the fact that the whole point of those laws originally was to say, hey, these are people who are being actively discriminated against because of the fact that they are, not white. And now it's like, but it's okay to discriminate against these Asians because we all know that they're going to automatically have a higher leg up because their parents came from over there and they have a stronger drive, or I should say, not drive, but they put more, I guess you could say, stock into education and things like that. And it's like, I thought, so basically because these people's parents came from cultures where education was highly expected, and because of that, they have a leg up. You want to penalize them for it. That is
not even that, but there is a huge section of that who are Asians who come from other places or a second or third generation. But I mean, we're coming to a point where there's so many like Asians who are just straight up Americans who they don't even remember when their family came over. Like they've been here. You'll ask them like, oh, when did your family come over here? They're like, dude, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's no guarantee because there's some Asians and I've even seen it, some that are first generation, after their parents come over, and they're complete dumbasses. Yeah. Like it's all in the personality. I'm just saying that it's a higher likelihood that the because their family was over there and experienced the actual hardship of like Vietnam, Korea, well, not so much Korea, but like Vietnam, China, things like that. Well, North Korea, I guess you could say.
I had this talk yesterday I was on the local radio, and they brought me in to talk about this particular subject because with them stifling basically Asian admissions processes by raising the bar for them, the question has come up, where does that come from? Because I mean, right now it's a stereotype, but there's a degree of truth to it. Like, why is it that Asians appear smarter, at least on rubrics testings and on standardized tests? And it's because I say culturally we put a lot of emphasis on education. I even said it's not because I don't feel smarter than anyone else, but instead of playing basketball, instead of playing football, my parents expressly forbid me to play contact sports. And they're like, you're going to sit down and you're going to study. That's all you're going to do is study, until that becomes basically second nature to you. And so when I was a kid, I got good grades, not necessarily because I was smarter, but because I put the work into it. But what I told him was, I said on this radio station, why is it that people want quote unquote diversity when it comes to something intellectual such as school, but when it comes to the NBA and when it comes to the NFL, why don't we ever complain about the lack of diversity there? Why is everyone
That's the
fine?
right kind of diversity.
That's the what?
The right kind of diversity, and you
That's
can't
correct.
read the air quotes that I'm using.
Yeah, exactly. And so diversity, air quotes, does not really mean what it says. I mean, I asked people this who are liberals. I'm like, define diversity for me. And one, a lot of them will say, well, if I have to tell you what diversity means, then you don't actually know what it means. And then the smart ones will say, well, diversity means a good sample representation. I'm like, okay, so let's take the extreme of it. Let's take LGBTQ. They represent less than 3% of the population, even by the most liberal definition of it, which means that, let's say the Marvel Universe has 100 characters in it. That means that less than 3 of them are going to be LGBT or Q. Why is it then, and again, this is where Zach has a point, why is it then that you have the improbable lesbian, where you pick up any random title on the shelf and there'll be a lesbian in it? That's not diversity, not by the definition that I was just given, where it's supposed to be like a fair representation. I'm sorry, but in any given sample size, it's not going to look like the Burger King Kids Club. On a weekend where I'm hanging out with friends for 2 hours, I guarantee you I'm going to be like 1 Asian, 4 white guys, and maybe a Hispanic. That is the diversity that you're going to be getting because of the company I keep, by virtue of me living in the South, and by virtue of where I am. I don't want someone coming in and saying, you can't hang out with Joey anymore. Joey is too white. Let's get this other guy in here. How does Vladimir sound? He's still white, but he's Russian. There you go. That's a fair representation. Baloney. No one ever. The life as we live it is not a fair representation. So diversity on its face is just a buzzword. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that, well, we're trying to pander to one group over the other. That's what it means. Let's just be honest here.
Tim with wise words.
It gets me heated up. I hate diversity. And I don't mean that. I mean, I hate diversity in the sense that it's a misused word. It doesn't have any meaning to what it means when the public thinks of it. When the public thinks of the word diversity, we think of it as a buffet. We think of it as a nice cross section that represents what that cross section means. If I take a cross section of a bar in the South, I guarantee you it's going to be maybe 12 white people, maybe 1 or 2 black people, a couple Hispanics, and 1 Asian. That's what that's going to be. If you enter a bar in the South and it looks like the freaking rainbow, that's not diversity. That is, I don't know. That's just some committee coming in and putting in their weird, sick, fanatical thought of what it needs to be. I mean, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I agree. And that's what makes it so frustrating, the fact that these jackasses think that they know what's right, that they know better than everyone, but in the end, all it's done is, like, how are we better? How are we, coming together, become more egalitarian? How are we, any of that? Instead, no, what we've had is the past 8 to 10 years, basically. Yeah, because it pretty much started in 2008. So for about the past 10 years, what we've had is things getting progressively worse. Why? Because of the fact that every time, like, me and I'm sitting here chilling with a black friend of mine, la-da-da-da-da, I make a joke that's off color that we are, you know what I mean? Like, we already know that it's a joke. We're having a good time. We're laughing it off. And then along comes this SJW. That's a problematic joke. That's racist.
I like
That's
that.
when you tell them don't care.
I like that joke. Well, actually, it's a retort. People will say, like, oh, you must be fun at parties. So I have this funny story. It actually happened. I was at this get-together of professionals in my field, and we were at this bar, and I had just met some of these people from a different university I've never met before, and we were just cutting it up, and someone made a joke about Orientals, And this blue-haired lady from one of the colleges was like, "That's offensive. I can't believe you just said that." And I'm sitting right there, and the guy's like, "Tim's my friend. Like, I've known each other." Yeah, but that's still. She turns to me and she's like, "I'm so sorry you had to hear that." I'm like, "Bitch, who are you to apologize for me? Like, I am sitting here. This guy's my friend. If it were not cool, I would tell him, but you don't need to be offended on my behalf. Like, I don't find that term offensive to begin with. So, like, who are you? Call your jets."
And notice the color of her skin.
White. Like,
surprise.
or Venusian. I don't know. Is like, do they dye their hair blue, or is it just like white people from Venus and that's why their hair is purple? I don't know.
Well, the thing that bothers me about these people doing that, it's like, if they've removed all ability for us to just be able to laugh at things that, because they forget one simple thing: how a stereotype becomes a stereotype. It's through repeated exposure to the same experience across a broad spectrum of people. So multiple people having that same experience, even though it was, on different occasions with different people. They forget that. And so when you make a joke about stereotypes and you have some blue-haired come up and be like, "That's problematic. That's racist. You shouldn't make jokes like that." And you're sitting there with your friend who knows you're joking. It's like, you fucking dumb hooker.
Yeah, again, you must be fun at parties.
Yeah. The movie that I really love to talk about when they talk about racial humor and when it's done in taste and not to draw blood and things like that, and race relations done really well is
Gran Torino.
I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Gran Torino.
Oh yeah.
That one, yeah, that one. I know that Asians don't get as offended, and it's just because they're less of this kind of I'm trying to think of the word. The culture in America kind of forces blacks to identify with each other and be a monolith, and Asians don't necessarily have that, and it's not this thing where it's you have to have allegiance to your race, whereas the media by and large will demonize blacks for kind of going against the grain and it's crazy that there's even a grain for their race. That shouldn't be a thing. People as individuals should be able to do whatever the hell they want and think the way they want. But I was gonna say the Lethal Weapon franchise, there was racial humor in that, and things that were not necessarily meant to draw blood. It was just a funny little joke or quip here and there. Even apartheid was going on, and they were making jokes with Danny Glover in the second one, I believe, went into the South African consulate because they were trying to break in.
Mm-hmm.
And so he made a distraction by going up and just being the loud, enraged black guy. And there was a lot of jokes about that. And back then, it wasn't a thing. No one looked at that and said, "Oh, that director probably hates black people." Or Danny Glover is a race traitor for that,
It makes me sad. I was watching Police Academy. I've actually never seen that movie before until about 2 months ago. So it was on Netflix, and I said, "Hey, I've never seen Police Academy. I know it was a franchise, so it must have been some." So I was watching on Netflix, and there's a lot of racial jokes in it, but it's so different. And this wasn't that long ago. We're talking about the 1980s. The blacks and whites in that movie got along. It was not an issue. One issue of race popped up in the whole movie, but that was not the central focus of it. And I just remembered, you look at a lot of movies from the 80s where you had, racial harmony. We've accomplished that. That's not a thing. And I think that these people, you have these race hustlers, and they're always trying to open that wound and make it seem like it's something you need to care about. You were talking about the solidarity thing. I don't know how to answer that without incorporating culture into it. And I'll give you a very good example. So when we were at my family, when I was a kid, we did a lot of traveling. And so we went to the antebellum South. We went to a lot of plantation homes and stuff like that. And occasionally we'd have some, black families in our tour groups. And you'd overhear them saying things like, "Yeah, this is what the terrible white people did to our family. This is what they built. Our hands built this house and we were oppressed, blah, blah, blah." And it was very negative. And I remember when we went to California, we went to this part of the railroad it was kind of abandoned, but they had this marker there, and it said, "This is where Asians built the railroad." And my dad turned to me, and my dad was like, "Son, this is where your ancestors built the railroad." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, you should be proud of that. Whenever someone says that we'd ever contributed anything to society, the great railroads of the West were built by a lot of people from China. And he didn't go into any of the backstory. He didn't go into any, like, you should feel solidarity for your Asian brothers because your Asian brothers have been oppressed by Whitey who made you build the railroad. No, none of that. It was like, this is the past. But it was Asian labor that did this, whether by good or by evil. It was the skill that was involved with it. It was the skill that paved that way for American transportation, and it was a contribution that we're acknowledging. But that is the past. That is something that luckily we don't have to do anymore, and we've progressed from that. But it's still something that should be kind of a point of joy, something that we did. So again, I think culturally there's just two very different ways. And I've known a lot of people. A lot of people in my sphere who are Black, and I cannot get them to not see that the solidarity angle is basically like a form of cultural Marxism, trying to pigeonhole them into an identity group. I don't identify with. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's parts of Asian culture that I like because it's helped me. Having a strong work ethic, knowing how to balance my checkbook, knowing how to work hard.
Having a leg up on algebra.
I'm actually terrible at math, so I don't Asian very well. But
same here.
So there's a lot of that I'm proud of. But when you ask me what I identify as, I don't say Asian. I say American, because I mean, like, I think everyone here. Frankly, I mean, like, I think everyone here knows how pro-America I am. I'm not pro-China. I mean, geez, no, hell no. I identify first. From a cultural aspect, I identify first and foremost as an American. Whereas I think a lot of these people, sadly, who are on the side of the far left, who are Black, they identify solely as Black. And I think that's something that, again, I think a person like a Thomas Sowell has to come in and kind of tell them, like, hey, I was thinking the way you did too at one time. And then I don't know what. At some point in my life, I just quit thinking that way. Same thing with Ben Carson. I mean, crap. I'm not smarter than Ben Carson, that's for sure. I mean, if I had half of his intellect, I'd be happy.
Like, if I was half as smart as Thomas Sowell, I'd be fucking happy.
Ben Carson Sorry, go.
I was just gonna say, I'm glad to hear that more people know who Thomas Sowell is, because I mean, maybe 8 years ago, I would talk to people and they'd be like, Thomas who? And now it seems like everyone who I know knows who Thomas Sowell is. I'm glad, because he's definitely probably the smartest person in my lifetime that I've encountered in academia.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Definitely.
When I came across him, when I discovered who he was, it was just a couple quotes. I was like, who's Thomas Sowell? And then I came across a video where he's sitting there and he's talking about economics, which everyone who knows who Thomas Sowell is knows he's an economist. So that's his field. He's going to know what the hell he's talking about. And, and then to sit there and find out after going through and, listening to a lot of his lectures and things like that, that he's one of the most hated Black men by other Black people because he refuses to kowtow to the victim narrative, because he's like, no, this victim narrative and all these other issues is how we got to this situation. He basically pointed out, it's like, in one of his lectures back in the 70s, he was talking about how affirmative action is going to end up hurting the Black community because of the fact that it makes it to where we're, instead of us having to be competitive and actually having to be on our A game to get these jobs, we are getting them simply for being Black, and that's going to end up hurting us in the long run.
Somebody's got some back feet. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I could hear somebody actually swallowing. So.
Hello.
Not me, no.
Okay.
What's going on in the background?
Is that you, Tim?
I'm not sure. Maybe I think he's doing something. I don't know. I'm not gonna. I'm not trying to say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas Sowell is a brilliant man. If nobody has ever watched him, I highly recommend. And I mean I know a lot about economics, but that guy just even puts what I know to shame. And I like, we're not worthy. We're not worthy. That's what I feel about when I'm around watching his stuff. I just recently rewatched a video with him and Dave Rubin, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, how can a guy so brilliant, and Larry Elder, if anybody has ever listened to him too.
Oh my gosh, I love Larry Elder.
Both those guys together, I would just love to sit in a room with them and pick their brains because they are so brilliant.
Yeah, but the problem is that the biggest, I guess you could say, tragedy is the fact that most people either don't know who they are. If they're black, they think they're sellouts and don't want to hear what they have to say because they, instead of just giving them an opportunity to make their case and, you know, actually judge them on the merit of their argument, they're just like, oh, well, you just defending the white man and la da da da. It's like, no, he's making actual well thought out arguments, asshole.
The interesting thing is, and this has just been my experience with a lot of black folks, is most of them are actually very conservative. If you talk with them, they're very conservative. So the stuff that Thomas Sowell and Larry Elder talk about is almost a natural thing within their family. It's because of the mainstream music industry and how they're portrayed to vote is what's made people to think that they're very liberal. They are not very liberal. And give you actually an example. In California, Proposition 8 actually got shot down, not because of white people, because of the Hispanic and black vote.
Yeah,
What was
so
Proposition 8 again?
What's that?
What was Proposition 8 again?
Was
Gay
it
marriage.
Gay marriage? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
They were not too fond of them.
So it's not because of white people that's something that changed. It is because traditionally blacks and Hispanics tend to be very conservative. It's just the way it is because and I would even say many Asian families are the same thing, is because they're more about family. They're about family environment and stuff like that, versus where white people have actually become kind of less of a collective in that terminology. I'm not using it as a negative connotation. We're less about family versus where almost all the other cultures are about family.
Yeah.
Well, and that is actually a very valid point. I think that's one of the reasons why, for instance, you have a lot of immigrants come over from basically Asia and from Africa and things like that, and they do excellently. A lot of them do very well. Why? Because they grew up in parts of the world where they may not have had the access to a good education, and they're like, no, you need this education. I've had to work 1,000 times harder because I didn't have that. You have it here. You will take full advantage of it whether you like it or not. And like, for instance, children of Nigerian immigrants have been like 2-3 of them within the past year alone have been in the news for being accepted into several colleges, Ivy League colleges at once.
Yeah. Good, Tim, you were going to say something.
I think I had a brain fart. I don't think I remember.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What I was gonna say was about the about a lot of these races, like blacks and Hispanics, and the other one I was gonna throw in there was people of Middle Eastern descent. They tend to be pretty conservative, but the thing is that the liberal Marxist media has essentially brainwashed them into identifying with their race as an identity. So they're told, a lot of them, it's like, you ask someone who's maybe of a Muslim faith or Hispanic or black, it's like, what do you think about gay marriage? And they're like, oh, no, I'm against that. Okay, well, what do you think about the family unit? Well, I think the family unit should be strong. I think people should have as many kids as possible. What do you think about religion? And of course, your Hispanic population is going to be like, oh, well, yeah, we're Catholic. Muslims are going to be like, well, we're Muslim. Oh, okay. So that sounds pretty conservative. Yeah, I guess you could say so. Okay, well, which party cares more about your race? Democrats? Well, there you go. That's who you're going to vote for. Okay, we're going to vote Democrat. That's essentially what that logic is. I mean, that's what Thomas Sowell has been pointing out, where he's like, these people need to learn that they, as hard as it is, they cannot identify monolithically with just their race and ethnicity. If we're going to be looking at political issues, you look at the issues. You don't look at in terms of how your race is. But I mean, honestly, entertainment and the media has done such a good job of painting this as whites versus everyone else that I think a lot of people vote that way. I actually have a lot of people I know who vote Democrat, and yet when I ask them issue by issue, they don't agree with their platform. And I asked them, I said, why do you vote Democrat then? And they said, well, Democrats are the only ones who give a crap about Hispanics. And I was like, well, what about the other issues? Oh, I'm not big into politics. That's how they get you. They try to make it so that you don't care about politics. And at the same time, as long as you show up to vote, that's all they care about.
No, that's a very valid point. And it's kind of sad because when you have something that is as important as politics, like the thing that irritates the ever-loving shit out of me is when I hear someone my age and younger say that they don't read. And it's like a society that, this is, especially when they're far left ideologue, because I throw one of their owns, I should say, quotes in their face. A society that is illiterate could be lied to and deceived. The same goes for a society that refuses to read and is willfully ignorant. And when they go, who said that? I said it's a modification of a Che Guevara quote. And then they look at me like I'm dumbfounded because of the fact that I quoted their side, making an argument for why they should educate themselves and actually know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
They just probably think like, oh, I thought he was just that guy on those cool T-shirts I'm wearing.
Yeah, that's actually what that has happened. You have no idea.
Well,
I'm just like, you're just giving me a mild aneurysm due to sheer stupidity.
Oh boy.
Rolling all of this into comics, it's an interesting kind of microcosm or petri dish, because you look at how a lot of these professionals in the comics industry, you look at how they argue, and if you are pretty well read and well versed in terms of critical thinking and I guess what the Umbrella Guy would call wrong think, it's easy to poke holes in their arguments, and a lot of it's sad. Some people have been asking me, why is it that creatives in the arts, why are they so liberal? And I say, I forgot what the name of it is, but there's actually a biological term where it's this idea that because there's only so much time to devote to something, you're always going to be lacking in something else. For example, if you're trying to put on muscle, so you're lifting weights constantly and trying to get jacked up, you actually don't have that much time to do other things, such as like reading or running. So you could be really strong, but chances are you're not going to be really fast. Something has to give. And so I've always argued that a lot of people who are in the creative sphere, they're so wrapped up in their own world, spending hours of the day at a time, not interacting with people, being lost in their own thoughts. And if they do interact, just interacting with people online, they live in echo chambers, not just with other people, but also of themselves. They're so wrapped up in their own thinking that they think that they're correct all the time, when in reality, they've actually never been confronted with people who think differently than them. And so how do they think? They think based on what they hear on TV, which is why when I was in college, I would not date any girl who said that they got their news from The Daily Show. And it's surprising how many people did. It was like, hey, you like politics? It's like, oh my God, like, yes, I love it. Well, where do you get your news? The Daily Show? Or I love Stephen Colbert? It's like, check, please. It's like, are you paying for this? No. Like, no, thank you. And it's funny because I never saw myself as a political person. I always knew kind of, when I was growing up, I was definitely socially conservative. Fiscally, I didn't really have a definite opinion because I was not old enough to really understand the depth and breadth of it. But as I grew older and I started paying more attention to this stuff, and especially since the culture war has been ramping up for the last 8 years, whether you're political or not, you're kind of forced into it. You know, like my co-writer, Mark Pellegrini, never voted in his whole life. He never voted until the 2016 election.
Wow.
And I asked him, what made you vote? And he said, I never saw myself as political, but I feel like they forced my hand. Like I spent the last 8 years just getting mad about being called something that I wasn't, being called every day a sexist or a bigot or a white supremacist when I know I'm not these things. And just the idea that a vote would be like rubbing it in their face, that's what made me vote. And you know, you talk to a lot of people in our community and they said the same thing. Like, dude, I consider myself classically liberal, but I feel like the earth shifted beneath my feet. I don't feel like my politics changed. I feel like the goalpost moved to the point where I am political now, not because I want to be, but because I'm forced to be.
Well, and that's actually a very common, I guess you could say, feeling amongst a lot of people today. And the problem is, like, the thing that worries me is the fact that you have these, I guess you could say the midterm could very well be swung over to the Democrats because a lot of people are not overly political, and they don't realize that the only reason why things are going good now is because the Republicans have the Senate, have everything needed. But because these are individuals who voted for the first time for Trump, they don't understand that if they don't get out and vote now, even I, Mr. I don't want to normally vote because, quite frankly, the fact that I have to choose between a turd and a douche means I shouldn't, I shouldn't have to make that choice. Give me two candidates that are actually worth the damn. But at the same time, it's like, but if I don't get out there and vote, I could end up with someone far left. Oh, I'm in Oklahoma. I don't think that'll happen. Yeah. A turd sandwich, and I got to take a big old steaming bite because I didn't get involved.
I mean, personally, I'm not scared about the midterm elections, and I don't want to jinx it, but frankly, I don't think there's a blue wave coming. Just from the people that I know and who I talk to, they're seeing more money in their bank account, and they like it, and they're pretty aware. Like, yeah, you got to come out in November, because if you don't, a lot of this can come crashing down really hard. Now, I'm not scared about impeachment at all. I think if we lose the House, then yeah, you're gonna have articles of impeachment brought up, but it's not gonna make it past the Senate. So that does not concern me at all. But I do think that if you're gonna fight a culture war, sometimes the only way you can do it is by the vote. So if you want to stick it to them, you'd better show up in November.
Well, with the culture war, I'm a little bit older than some of you, and what I have a problem understanding is how I know the left has instituted policies within education that have suppressed certain ideas about America and have heightened other ideas that are personally, in my opinion, are antithetical to our way of life, to the Constitution, to the American ethic, and a whole lot of other ways. But what I can't understand is that with the rise of the ability to know information, which most of us have right in our hands, is that people are so obtuse, so ignorant of the fact that they live in the greatest country in the world, and yet they think they're oppressed constantly. They don't understand that if they were in another part of the world, they'd have to spend all of their days, just trying to get enough food to keep the lights on, that sort of thing, as opposed to what we have. We have a largesse of everything. I mean, we're the fattest poor people in the world. I mean, I heard that quote and I was like, that makes us not poor people. When your poorest people have an obesity problem, that doesn't mean that you have a dearth of everything that makes life what you can make it. When I look at what's happening, and I see people saying the things that they say, that we've got to change everything. Everybody has to have everything equal in outcome. Well, what they're doing, and then they look at history and they whitewash it. And I'm not saying whitewash it in the way they say it, but they say that no, the Soviet Union was great up until a point, and then it became something else. And I'm like, then why is it every time it has been tried, what you guys are pushing right now, why has it every time it's been tried, millions of people die? How do they miss that? How do they gloss it over? And then they just say that everything else is Nazism, when everybody knows that Nazism was just the flip side, the national side of socialism, as opposed to the international side of socialism. I don't get it. It makes me frustrated. It makes me angry. And I don't say it very much online because I don't put out tweets about how angry it makes me. But I sit here and I wonder, how long is it before we have a real problem? Just, not just us bantering about, comic books and about games and about movies, when it moves into the streets for real. And that kind of scares me. And that's why I'm a real constitutionalist. I watch the Constitution and I watch what people say in Congress about how they try to erode it. And when you see the First Amendment going and the Second Amendment specifically, you know that those are the bellwethers that we'll have to stand up. We really will. We'll have to stand up to save the Union. Otherwise, the Union will dissolve and the whole world will descend into chaos.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. That's kind of how do I put this? The fact they want us to get there. They don't want us to talk about it. They don't want us to have that conversation. They want to keep us, you know what I mean, constantly basically they relied on the whole rule that the things you're not supposed to talk about is religion and politics. They relied on that rule for so long to be able to get people to just nudge them over to these ideologies over time.
That's why we have the First Amendment. We have to be able to talk about these things. We have to be able to be open, even about the things that we don't like. We have to be able to hear them. We have to be able to examine them, and we have to be able to reject or accept them. And then when we know if somebody has accepted something as bad, then we can make a discernment upon who that person is. Otherwise, if you start closing them off so you won't talk about them at all, you don't know where the bad people are. And the problem is when they start doing that, you know that those are the bad people. When they say, "Oh, don't talk about that," we have to shut that down. That's the problem. That's why you want an open society. That's why you want people to talk.
Oh, I agree.
I'm sorry, I'm getting heated. I probably should lay off for a minute.
No. It's understandable. I would agree with you, Jimmy. Where this disconnect is, in all honesty, and I see it. It's not just one generation. Josh said, it's been ongoing. I can remember my grandparents telling me two things you never talked about, and this is people from the 40s, okay, that grew up during World War II. They said there's two things you never talk about: religion and politics. I'm like, why? And and you guys know me. I'm a religious person and I'm a political person. I'm like, why can't I talk about those things? Why is it such a bane to talk about that stuff? If you don't talk about it, you are going to get exactly what you had in the 1930s. You're going to have Nazi socialism, where everybody's going to be forced to do things a certain way. Honestly, I'm going to see, I see it. I see America, in all honesty. I don't see it surviving as a country for much longer. I've said it time and time again. The break is not going to come from outside, somebody invading us. It's going to come from within.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they've relied upon. Think about it. You've had these far-left ideologues that have been infiltrating our educational system, our higher educational system, no less, colleges and things like that, since the fall of the Soviet Union, since pretty much the 60s and 70s. The end of the McCarthy era is when you started to see Dumming said it best, Rome 2.0, but the end of the McCarthy era is where you started to see the infiltration start to happen with the hippies and everything, where you had individuals that were pretty much pushing the ideals of socialism, communism, that of the such, onto these impressionable college students. And now, yes, the hippies may have been, if you will, Marxist in nature, but they were Marxist in the aspect of, hey man, make love, not war. Let's all work together. They had the proper ideology. Some of them,
there were some that were radicalized, but I mean, when I look at that time period, I mean, I was born right at the end of it. I don't see the type of there's a wedge driven through us right now. I mean, and it's widening. The thing I do see that gives me hope is the extremes, the polemics on each end. They're not a lot of them. all right, and compare. I mean, there's enough to cause a real big problem, but the center, but the center seems to, like, and I hate to use the word sheep, but until they wake up and see that if what they have is precious, if they don't wake up in time, it doesn't take a whole lot of people to change a country's makeup. I mean, the Nazis were not a large segment of the German population, and yet they did what they did. And the same thing happened in communism. There was a significant amount, but not compared to like the whole population.
Yeah.
The population was just coming out of monasticism, monarchism, and they were just kind of getting over that. And you know, we're talking with Russians, they tend to like a strong man to kind of hold them together. I mean, whether it's good or bad, if you look at their history. We are a little bit more independent. However, I think that sometimes we get a little bit hubristic in the sense that we think that nothing can come. And I have enjoyed the fact that I love that we're a melting pot. But the fact is, if you use that melting pot against itself, is what's happening right now.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
we're fragmenting ourselves right now with this bullshit that is being preached through the universities. And now it's coming out of almost from every angle of media. We're getting it. And people are getting snowed. I mean, a whole generation thinks that it's a good idea to have a median income, you know, wage. Like everything's given to you. You know what happens when you do that? You live in cement blocks and everybody gets a portion of food. That's what happens every time. And
Well, here's the scary thing about it, though. Now, this is even scarier. So you said, like, at some point, they're just going to wake up and this is the reality that they live in.
yeah,
How many of those people won't care? And what I mean by that is I've lived in countries in Europe where like socialism light is practiced. You don't have the major rich. You don't have well, I take this back. You don't have the major rich. You have a big middle class, and then you do have a poor population. But no one cares about the poor because in their mind, it's like, well, it's socialism. Everyone should be living like we do because everyone has a government basically doing everything for them, and so everything is peachy. They don't like what I found eerie about it was a lot of those people did not care. I was like, you don't care that the government takes 65% of your money? It's like, no, because I have a house and I have a kid and everything's fine. And I'm like, I like America where every day you can make more money, you could lose a lot of money, but it's an adventure. And I would rather live free in that type of environment than live in this kind of weird socialistic environment where everything is so sober and median.
see, you're the American that we need, though. I don't mean to be xenophobic or anything, but I'm xenophobic of my culture is precious to me. I mean, I have family from Mexico, and I go down to Mexico occasionally, and I'm glad I'm American because the social stratification there is almost a caste system. It's very hard to move between classes in Mexico. You know, if you want to go from the lowest class, which is basically a dirt farmer, essentially a serf, to up the upper society, you know, that's a generational thing that somehow you're going to have to figure out how to marry that way, or you have to go into crime and make money illicitly. There's no other ways. Or come up to America and make some money and send it back down to your family and raise it that way. You know, basically that's how you move. I don't want that culture here. I don't want the culture of any other country here. I want other people's cultures to come here and give nuance, but I want them under the umbrella, the over umbrella of the American culture. And I do believe that what we're seeing right now is eroding that very thing. And it's kind of scary.
Well, a lot of people, especially like on the academic liberal far left, they have a very thanatotic cultural suicidal response. You ask them, it's like, you know, a lot of them, like, they flat out say, like, I hate whites. I hate being white. I hate it. I have white guilt. So you have this whole generation of people who have white guilt, and they literally don't care. It's like, well, you want like a communist or socialist utopia where you have like the government doing everything? Yes, I want that. Well, what would you do if you got, I don't know, do you feel like the white race needs to be eradicated? Yes, I think that's the only way that this can happen. What if that includes you? If I must die for social justice, then so be it. And I'm like, that's weird. Like that's really scary to me.
Yeah, there's problems there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that kills me is I'm in my 30s and I don't have children yet, but I'm planning to. And if politics didn't mean anything to me before, if the culture war didn't mean anything to me before, it sure as hell does now. Because I'm like, I don't want my kids living in that. I mean, my kids are going to be half white and half Asian. And, I don't give a damn about that. But there's sure as hell no way they're going to be living their life with white guilt. That's stupid. I mean, why should you feel guilty about your race? You didn't do any of this stuff. I mean, shit. I'm pretty sure that if you trace my ancestry long enough, I'm sure I had some sort of barbaric Genghis Khan type warlord in my past. But hell, how does the guilt of my ancestors translate itself into modern day? I mean, any success that I've had, I didn't get by being Asian, and they sure as hell didn't get by being white. They got it through grit. They got it through hard work, and they're born into this world not having any of that transcribed onto them. But again, that's something that we need to reteach our children through education and by our entertainment, which is why I'm very picky now in terms of the comics I read, the movies I watch, the television I consume, because I do feel like building back a healthy culture starts at home, and it does involve what we decide to absorb and transmit to our children.
I used to be. People in this set have heard me talk about it. I used to be in the film and television industry, and at one point I just said I'm done. And there were other reasons too, but I mean, I kind of saw it coming. I don't think like they do. And a lot of the people who are like me either kept their head down or they got out and did something else. And I used to be a huge cinephile. I used to go to movies all the time. I used to collect movies. And now, man, just like comics, just like about everything else, I'm super picky, just like you. I look to the old things. I look to the classics for my entertainment. I do a lot of reading now because what I see in mass media and pop culture, I don't like it. It puts my teeth on edge, and it makes me sad. But I still see good things out there. And when you do see them, when you do see the gems among the dross, you got to hold on to them. You got to find them. You got to share them, and show what things could be, what things might be again. Anyway. I gotta go, guys. Thanks for talking with me and putting up with my palaver.
Oh, not a problem.
No problem.
All right, I will talk to you guys later. Nice to talk to you, Tim. And
Absolutely, you too.
Great success with your books. The good stuff. I've been collecting them. So,
thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.
Well, there has to be in all honesty, I think there needs to be a clear balance. I know I saw one comment here. It says about capitalism has problems. Well, yeah, every political system is going to have problems because we live in humans are flawed, and that also goes into the church has kind of taken a back seat to where the things they were supposed to be doing.
Well, and you present a valid point. Like a lot of people talk about how we need the government to do basically take care of the less fortunate and so on and so forth, but they're like a lot of the point I like to point out is the government didn't used to have the social safety nets that we have now. You know who did that?
That was the church.
Yes, it was exactly the church that did it. So you don't need a big bloated government to be what's taking care of all this. All you need is the proper charity and people doing your job.
And if you really look at where the decline of especially our system is, when they really start throwing God out of the government and God out of schools and stuff like that, you almost saw a moral decay sliding down. So yeah, I really think capitalism is a good economic system and stuff like that. The problem is you have to have, it's almost like a trifecta: the church, government, and personal responsibility. The three have to be balanced in order to be very effective. And I think for the most part, for the longest time, it was. It's just now within the last 20 to 30 years, everything is way out of balance. The personal responsibility factor is out of whack. The same thing with the church. It's all been now heaped onto the government, and that's why everything is out of balance. That's just my opinion.
Oh no, you present a valid point, and the way I would look at it is we have an entire system that was designed for us to be able to, yes, modify, to adapt with times. The founding fathers understood that things do change. That's not the problem. The problem is how it's changed. Yes, it's changed, but it's changed for the worse. Every time we think we're starting to get things going, and once again, the same problem, or the problem I should say, it's the same people we've been talking about. People who don't understand the consequences of their actions. They just cling to that pillar of ideology because everyone told them, that everyone said, just keep yourself shackled to this pillar, everything will be all right. Whatever other people tell you that you think is, the minute you start thinking for yourself or start listening to these people who may be right, may be wrong, whatever, we don't know, but the pillar knows. The pillar knows all. Just keep yourself shackled here. Believe. And guess what? The pillar of ideology is keeping people ignorant, keeping people misinformed, because the pillar of ideology doesn't care about facts. The pillar of ideology just cares about keeping your eyes blocked of the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you look at it, I mean, and now keep in mind, when I talk about religion, I'm talking about, I can't say that, like atheists and agnostic people can't have a moral center, Well, I'm talking about the religious framework of how the Constitution framed everything, So the responsibility of all three, because I'm looking at, some of the things going on in the chat, it is a pillar of sacrifice that, that is required. We have that personal responsibility, which everybody is given to us by God or Creator, however you believe, or even if you don't believe, it's morally, whatever you believe. Those three things. If the government if one of the other three get too large, look, big point case. You look at some of the countries in the South. The church is very corrupt, and you know what I mean. So, yeah. I mean, for the longest time, we had that moral center. Now, and that's not saying everything was perfect here in the country. There were a lot of major problems within this country, and but I still think that for a while there was this trifecta of personal responsibility, perfect balance of human government, and the perfect balance of the church. All three kind of fed into each other and maintained that balance, but it just slowly has started to tilter, and that's just the way I think. Now we got to the point of you have everybody just wants to give up everything. Let's give everything up to the church, or vice versa. I'm just talking about the United States itself. Let's just talk about the United States. We give everything up to the
Be right back. Need coffee.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Also, I gotta actually head out. Saying they want to do stuff.
But anyhow, yeah, that's fine. Go.
I'll see y'all later. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Dick.
But to bring it back to comics, I mean, we really need to, and I think that's where, comics, it has a way of being that medium that can be that medium that allows people to bring ideas. I mean, heck, I know a lot of people hated. There was a lot of things I loved with the Green Lantern and Green Arrow run, because you have Hal Jordan, who's this, basically for all intents and purposes. Tim, would you say would you guys say he's probably very the quintessential conservative, and then Green Arrow's probably the quintessential liberal? For the most.
Green Arrow is definitely the quintessential liberal as far as the history of it has gone. If we're just sticking with DC, I honestly don't know what to say about the quintessential conservative. But if we were looking at Marvel, Punisher, I would say is the quintessential conservative. And I don't mean that he represents conservative values, but I know that Zach made a video maybe either last year or earlier this year, where he talked about why he considers the Punisher to be the quintessential conservative, even though his actions are very violent. It's the idea that when the government and when laws and the justice system is so flawed that it cannot take out people who are objectively evil, that a Second Amendment person who takes it to the extreme can do this, and in the eyes of the viewer is righteously justified, because we know that he's not killing people who are jaywalking. He's killing pedophiles and rapists and drug dealers and scumbags. That's why he argued that he's the quintessential conservative, and I liked it. I agreed with it wholeheartedly. The worst Punisher stories are the ones where he accidentally kills like an innocent person and spends the next 2 issues blubbering to himself about killing an innocent person. It's like, yeah, but we don't read the Punisher for that. The Punisher is as much a character as the writer who's writing him. So don't say like, oh, that's just the way the story progressed. Nah, the story progressed that way because you let it that way. You're the storyteller. Do it the way that it's supposed to. So I don't know who would be on the DC side, honestly.
Abbott said the question would be...
The question would be... because the question and Rorschach are essentially birthed from the same proto-character, Mr. A, who was created by Steve Ditko. He's an Ayn Rand objectionist, I guess. So yeah, I think that would be a good pick, but some people would actually just say that he's a libertarian. So I'm not too sure about that one. That's
why I kind of thought Hal would be more like, if you look at Hal's character, he would be, to me, he does seem to be more conservative, the more like, right-leaning conservative, you know what I mean? Not like a high-end, far-right conservative, you know what I mean? I think he's probably more the middle-of-the-road conservative. But, I just think, to me, I think we've lost that. And that's a big thing. I thought that, you're looking at a lot of, and that's the thing is, I agree. Comics have always been political. I disagree with that nature, but politics was not the center of propaganda in the comics. Everything was all subtleness,
Yeah, they use that term. That's called a truism, where they're saying something fundamentally true as the focus of their argument when it's not really an argumentative point. We're not saying that politics should not be in comics, but it is more the interjection of modern politics as propaganda to suit a certain point. When I was a kid, for example, I could read the X-Men and not realize it was a thinly veiled allegory for civil rights. But even then, if we were to look at it as a civil rights allegory, it wasn't like all mutants are good, all humans are bad. Even within mutants, you had like the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants with Magneto and his ilk, and then you had Xavier and you had his friends, and then you had humans who were good, you had humans who were bad. So even in the lens of that political allegory, it was a lot more nuanced. It was a lot more thought-provoking if you were to look at it as such. But in the end, you could still read it as just its own thing and not have to really inject it, not have to see anything political in it. And so I think that's the argument that kind of falls flat on its face. It's like, well, it kind of depends on who you're talking to. I'm not saying not to have books that reflect contemporary issues, but that's not why people read comics. I don't read comics for that purpose. I read comics because it's a form of escapism. Every now and then, if there's some politics that pop up, judge it from its own merits. It's kind of like the Sunday school, the afternoon or the Saturday morning special, or the after school special, where you have that special episode. But by and large, the comics that we read growing up were not bad. If I read a Batman book, it was because, oh, cool, Joker's in the 5-part arc, and it's like, how do he come back to life? How's Batman going to hunt him down? Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
I didn't read it to say, ooh, I want this to be a contemporary look at Reagan's America and how it's affecting everyone negatively. And, oh, there's this person who's a stand-in for Reagan. No one reads comics because of that. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Numbing actually says Magneto is the ultimate SJW terrorist. Changed my mind. You know what? I wouldn't say he's an SJW terrorist. I would actually consider him closer to being a
Malcolm X
type character.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sitting here I'm sitting here like, why aren't y'all trying to let me talk?
Yeah, I consider him more definitely the Malcolm X, where Xavier was the Martin Luther character, you know.
Oh yeah. Well,
And if
actually, real quick, it's not allegory; it's a metaphor.
Metaphor.
The allegories have to continue along the same lines. They have to stay that way in order to, you know what I mean. You can't deviate away from them. But the X-Men was a great metaphor for the civil rights movement and everything, and that's what allowed them to be able to do their own thing with a lot of the stories and everything. And real quick, the other thing I was going to say, it's a quote by Peter Simeti, or a tweet by Peter Simeti. With your help, we are doing what the industry said can't be done. Comics at $1.50, newsprint in interiors, newsstand distribution along with standard comic shop distribution, and so much more. Thank you for supporting at Alterna Comics. Much love to our readers and creators.
Oh, is this something he just put out?
6:40, like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's just one of those, once again, why everybody loves Peter. Like, he is such a positive guy, and he brings that positivity into comics. And it's like, why did they have to go after the one guy that everybody should like? Regardless of political affiliation, regardless of all the bullshit, the one person everybody should like, the Stan Lee of the modern era, if you will.
Honestly, I think the reason why they're going after him because he's a threat. You know, they you know, the biggest thing is, you know, I hate charging the price that I charge for comics. I think $4 for a comic is a little crazy, you know, but, you know, I understand the printing side and all that stuff into the whole thing of what it costs to go to make a comic. But at the same point, you know, he's proving that, you know, these norms that were in comics 20 years ago, why did we abandon them? What, you know, why did we give up, newsprint comic that had been printing on newsprint for how many years? Pretty much since its inception. You know, now here we are 20 years, or 60, 70, 80 years later, we have to have comics on these good paper, and, you know, and I think if you're just looking for something to throw away and you're not a collector, newsprint is perfectly fine. You know, and then get the trades for, you know, for your collection or something like that. I have this big problem with them targeting someone who's trying to keep the industry from completely collapsing.
Oh, not just that. The thing that I just kind of, I guess you could say, the way I look at it is, yeah, it may be newsprint, it may not be as quality, but you know what? Even like, if you take good care of it in 30, 40 years, you still may end up with a comic that's worth something because you took care of it, and so many of them got destroyed because they were just simple newsprint, and people were like, whatever, it was only $1.50.
All my stuff is in, all my stuff from all the classic runs are all in plastic bags and stuff like that for protection and stuff. So honestly, it can be done. You know, even against new comics, you know, I just think, in all honesty, they see Peter as the bad guy because he's challenging the status quo, just like Image did in the 90s.
But unlike in the 90s, we have social media now, to where they couldn't just go on a platform and then publicly lambaste him for whatever reason. No, they had to beat them in sales, or, you know what I mean, put out better ads in Wizard and things like that. Now, they have this wonderful thing, quote unquote, called social media that allows them to just be like, oh, we can go on, you know what I mean, the site, and being the fact that it's basically just blast somebody. And I really do hope he does sue. Because no,
I don't want him to sue. I want him to be better than that. I want him to throw away all the garbage and just keep creating what he's doing. I think that's the way to win.
The reason why I say I want him to sue is because they did slander him publicly. They did try their damnedest, and it could
He's
have...
not gonna win. The reason why is because part of suing someone for slander is you have to prove that there was punitive damages.
Yeah.
And the fact that you told me that he sold 5,000 copies
True,
means that he
true.
actually won.
True,
Yeah.
well, but that's because everybody, you have a valid point there. Everyone, because we saw what was happening, we all stepped up to bat and we're like, "Nah, fuck that. The money we were going to spend on you, we're going to spend on him and buy him out of all his comics."
Yeah.
And all weekend.
Yeah. And I don't think he's complaining about it at all. I think he's grateful for the whole thing, I love Peter. I think he is what we need more of in this industry, and I see it coming, with everybody else in their project. If we can figure out this whole printing thing, I know, Tim, you've expressed working with Peter and stuff like that. I know I would love to get Sporkman there. I think that would be a great fit for the company.
Have you tried? Have you reached out to him?
No, I talked to him with conventions, and there were some issues he talked to me about. So we're retooling. That's one of the reasons why we're redoing the lettering on Japan, because the original conventions, the guy used a variant of Comic Sans. So, so I'm going to resubmit it once we redo everything. I am going to resubmit it for Japan for him to do it. So,
okay.
But we are going to be using his print option possibly for the for the Indiegogo, because he has the new print option available. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah, it's part of that affiliate program or something that he has going on.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that in terms of printing, because it's just a much cheaper route, and that's actually how I'm able to get because I'm gonna let you guys know that's one of the reasons why I'm actually offering the trades for as low as I am or not the trade itself, but the floppies, is because we're going through him on the printing program, so that way it gets the cost down on terms of the Japan issues. Well, granted, you're going to pay a little bit more for the conventions because we don't have that through him, but that's what we're going to do. So
cool.
But then, I do want to then resubmit everything once we're done with the Indiegogo and get all the lettering done. I actually want to get that title with him. I would love to be able to print there or Antarctic Press, either one of them. I want to be with either company, because I think, they're both companies are trying to keep the light on in the comics industry. And there's a couple other ones that I definitely, like Wiki Publishing and stuff like that. These are the guys that are trying to keep the light on in the industry. They don't want to see the industry collapse.
Well, the shitty thing is, though, they shouldn't have to be the ones that are trying to keep the industry alive. Marvel and DC should be doing their damn job and be putting out comics. I'm going to have a bit of a Bob Jones here. They should be being out there putting out great soy-free American comics for good soy-free red-blooded American patriots. But instead, what they're doing is they're bringing the soy, all the things that are not masculine into the comics, and they are pushing out all the red-blooded American.
Yeah.
Now, get out there and fight Bendis and his ridiculous non-invasion.
The thing is, really, honestly, and Sketch brings up a really good point. It is, we can have the printer. We need to break Diamond's, and I don't know how you feel about this, Tim, or not. A Diamond really needs to be broken in some way. They have a stranglehold on the comic market, and I think that's shitty.
Possibly monopoly laws, antitrust laws.
They can't. There's already been a lawsuit about that,
Yep.
And because Diamond works as a publisher, since they're not pushing out the book publishers out of business, they're not a monopoly.
Yep.
But they have a stranglehold on distribution.
It would be argued because the fact of, you could technically buy Antarctic Press and all these other companies. You could buy a right directly from their sites. So that might be argued that, well, they technically don't. While they do have a stranglehold on LCSs, you know, and I think that's where we need to break the mold. Let's get comics out of just the LCSs. We need to get them back into, you know, the Dollar General stores, the 7-Elevens, the Sheets and stuff like that. For those who don't know what those are, you know, buying a Guess Mini Mart. I remember being a kid in, 1986, walking into my local 7-Eleven and having the spinner rack of all the different comics from 2 different ones. All the Archie stuff and the Donald Ducks and stuff like that, and the next one had all the DC and Marvel. I miss those days. I miss those days.
That's how I used to get my Wizards, man. Believe me, I know.
So I think if we could get that stuff back into those places. Now, of course, the downside is, those more and more convenient shops don't have the option. So let's use the Dollar General stores, the Dollar Bin stores, because those are the shops that actually have the stock ability to hold that stuff,
Well, the thing that bothers me about it is like I said, we are trying to fight against 2 big companies, 4 technically if you count Image and IDW, that don't care if the industry collapses, and you have people that shouldn't have to be trying to keep the industry alive. That, like I said earlier, and that's still the bulk of my point.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Simeti should be, yes, he's benefiting from their mistake, but it's not his job to keep the industry alive. It's not the guys at Antarctic's job to keep the industry alive. The industry should be thriving, and everybody should be making their money. Everybody should be able to be like, hey, did you hear about this book from this publisher? Oh, yeah, that was a good book. I liked it. Did you hear about this book that Marvel put out, or DC put out, or Antarctic, or Alterna, IDW? Everybody should be being excited about books from all the publishers, because having all these publishers gives us a wide variety of comics to be able to read from. I mean, if you look at Alterna's site and the books he has, like, he has everything from sci-fi to horror to, he doesn't even have that big of a superhero selection, which is kind of sad, but he makes up for it for having other books that are just as interesting. I'm not gonna knock it.
Which is why I would love to get Sporkman in there, because that could give, and anybody else who's got a superhero comic, really let's get. We need to. I think honestly, Antarctic Press and Alterna need to be the options everybody should be looking at to publish through. And I know Peter's not going to take everybody. That's just a fact. I understand. The same thing with Antarctic Press. They're not going to take everybody. But at the same point, I have got to be pleased with the fact that they've given multiple people in our group, Tim, Brian, Matt, they've given these guys a great chance to get their product out there. And I've backed every single one of them. And let's do the same thing with, Alterna. We might be able to create a third company that might be able to publish, independent creators, and get that stuff out there as a way to help push this industry. In all honesty, I said this yesterday. I think there is going to be a split within the comics community. You're going to see the comics community diverge, from each other. And the same thing's going to happen within movies. I have this feeling, and the music industry, where things are going to split almost. It's almost going to become a battle of ideologies versus, trying to, and for all intents and purposes, you're going to have to pick a side. I hate it that, that I can't like pros that I've liked for years and years and years. But, at the same point, they're forcing my hand.
And look at it like this. It's like I've said a lot on a DC United's streams where I've pointed out on a couple videos, hey, Kingdom Come is one of my favorite stories, but I can't even like it anymore because of the fact that Mr. Mark Waid himself was the writer of it.
Well, I can still differentiate. I'll look at the old stuff, just because, I grew up, I love Kingdom Come. I love Namor the Submariner. Those comics I I can ideologically separate because this is before now. The newer stuff, yeah, I'm going to judge the work now because it's shitty writing, it's shitty character development, and which is a shame because every character, we were actually talking about this the other day. G. Willow Wilson put a post out. She talked about like how all 9 volumes of Miss Marvel sold 500,000 issues. I'm like, wait a second. So it took you 9 volumes to reach 500,000. One comic did 500,000 on our side. What does that say? Honestly, granted, you look at 60,000 average of 60K per issue. It's like, yeah, something's going on. It's not. And Kamala Khan is actually a very good character. I actually like her as a character. I just don't like the way G. Willow Wilson wrote her. I don't have any problem with the character itself. It's just how it's written is the issue.
Well, like my whole thing is I was actually one of the few people who were perfectly fine with the Kamala Khan Miss Marvel because she was still being. She was the protege. Sorry, the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Of the original Miss Marvel, who had moved on to Captain Marvel. And on the one hand, I was kind of, what if they really want to bring back OG Captain Marvel? I know he's dead right now, but what happens if they do? I mean, we can have 2 Captain Marvels. That's not the problem, but whatever.
Well, you already have 2 Captain Marvels.
Well, yeah.
You technically have 3 Captain Marvels. Now they just went and changed their names.
Yeah, but the whole point I was making is I was fine with it because they still, like, the biggest thing that my biggest complaint about the whole Miles Morales Spider-Man, how he was, he needed to delete, they should have had him be a Spider-Man's protege for fuck all ever, and then we would have had no problem with it. A la Sam Wilson Captain America, nobody had a problem, no one on our camp had a problem with him taking up the mantle. It was the problem that he was politicized. His taking up the mantle was politicized.
Yeah.
That's what we had a problem with. And, like, to me, that would have made Miles Morales a better character, but that's what made Miss Marvel a good character. The fact that we all had no problem with it. Like, I didn't, for instance, because I was like, hey, she's the original Miss Marvel's protege. I can handle that. That's fine. I mean, she had a different set of powers, which is kind of weird. I would rather her have similar powers to the...
No, I'm actually glad she did have different powers because that is diverse. That's diversity right there. Okay, her having different powers, but she felt so honored by Captain Marvel or Ms. Carol Danvers that she took on the mantle, of being Ms. Marvel because she basically it's that honor. It's the same thing with Sam Wilson. Whole different power set with Sam Wilson versus Captain America, Steve Rogers. So I have no problem with people taking on the mantle of somebody because when you're an idea, for instance, down the road we eventually have Sporkman 4.0. Sporkman is the idea. Okay, anybody who is worthy of Sporkman, the title. Anybody could take that role, no matter who they are, as long as they embody the ideas of the character. I don't have a problem with using, kind of like Green Lantern. Green Lantern is a core of people, okay? But there are multiple different Green Lanterns within that core group. I don't have a problem with somebody having the same name as long as they are embodying the idea of Ms. Marvel. And she is. So it doesn't matter, I don't have a problem. Just if you're going to give Spider Gwen, I don't have a problem with her name being Spider Gwen. Okay, as long as she's embodied as Spider-Man. Miles Morales, I saw him as Spider-Man. They did a fantastic job in the Ultimates universe with him picking up when Peter Parker was killed. So I don't have a problem with the diversity. I don't have a problem with Amadeus Cho being called Incredible Hulk, as long as he's embodying the idea of who Incredible Hulk is, and it's done right. It's introduced correctly. That's just my view.
I'm not. By the time Amadeus Cho became Hulk, I would already dipped out on Marvel and was like, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. Like, but it's like the whole bit on Twitter where the dude tried throwing the death of War Machine in my face. Pretty much is like, well, what did you get as mad when they killed Jim Rhodes and then Frank Castle stole the War Machine armor and was using it? No, because I wasn't reading Marvel Comics at that point. I had let y'all do whatever the hell you want. You can't get mad at the lack of an outrage mob when you run off all the fans that would have been outraged by it.
Yeah. sorry to suck up all the conversation there, guys.
That's all right.
I think Tim disappeared. We may have to send out a search party.
No, I'm here. I don't have anything to say about. I'm like you, Bob. I dipped out of Marvel, and so that means that there's not much to opine with.
Yeah, and that's sad. Oh, speaking of that initial Spider-Gwen shirt that you did that got you into merchandising and got you into the industry?
It was actually no, that was actually at the tail end of my career. Technically, I'm still working in merchandising. I just did merchandising artwork for Return of the Living Dead, and I still work on Marvel's trading card line, so I'm still employed as a freelancer. But that was like the last big thing. So it's funny. I hold a place in my heart for Spider-Gwen, not because I necessarily like the work. It's actually pretty inoffensive. I picked up the first trade. It's not like political or anything like that. I just think it's a shtick that was popular and it still is to an extent. But that was like a big thing. Was working. I got to do the very first Spider-Gwen merchandise art. That was for me. That was big. That was really cool. They were putting it on all the unboxes, and at New York Comic Con they had it on like the official merchandise. So that was really neat. It's just like I said, Marvel has these ideas that seem like fun. I mean, I like her, and my guilty pleasure is I actually do like Gwenpool primarily because I think Christopher Hastings and Guru Hiru did such a good job with the art and the storytelling on it. It got really annoying towards the end though. So they have these ideas that could fly by concept, but when you put it into practice is where things start to fall apart. But I forgot where I was going with that. But yeah, I did work on that Spider-Gwen art, and it was funny because earlier this week, someone had tagged me and CB Cebulski and Marvel, and they're like, "Hey, did you publish this guy? You need to get him fired." I'm like, I'm a work for hire. I mean, if they don't want to hire me, that's their prerogative. But I'm guessing they like money. So it's like, as long as they like money, they're going to hire me to do these tertiary projects for them. No one cares if you go to a store and buy my t-shirt. No one pays attention to who the artist is. They just like the shirt. So I don't know. I just thought the whole thing was really pathetic.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I just, I'm sorry. I had a bit of cough there, but no, I figured it was very topical, and I'd seen that and was like, oh, that is awesome, and I thought it was very outstanding art and whatnot. And what I saw is where you were talking about how the art doesn't have to be ugly, the character doesn't have to be ugly. That's what I saw when you were talking about that.
No,
that's what I was like, ah,
not at all, and not just that, but you'll notice that with Squirrel Girl, they almost never print her form in the books. They don't print the Erica Henderson version. When I was my merchandising partners who were artists, they always portrayed her as being very cute, very like slender, not necessarily like sexy, but just kind of normal body heroic proportions for a female. And that's what sold, because honestly, you put that other Squirrel Girl art on it, no girl's gonna buy that. Like, are you kidding me? That's that consumer psychology that a lot of these people don't want to contend with.
Well, the thing that bothers me about it is for me, the way I look at it is they try to make the argument that, oh, well, it's because the sexy women give women a bad body image and make them issues. Bitch, have you seen superhero comics? Have you seen the majority of the men in superhero comics in something that you like to say is a predominantly male field? Oh, well, that's just a male power fantasy. So, okay, having attractive women is damaging to women, but having muscular men, attractive men, is a male power fantasy.
Yeah, it's like, you ever see that meme? they have this picture of Barbie, and they say, "This is Barbie. She emphasizes negative female body proportions. She emphasizes the male gaze. She emphasizes that girls feel very guilty about themselves because of their body proportions compared to hers." And then right next to it is He-Man, and it just says, "This is He-Man."
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's this roided up dude wearing the most ridiculous outfit. Like, I don't even know why you bother wearing that that cross bandolier around your chest if you're going to just combine it with a loincloth. It's like just to hold his sword and sheath in the back. And that guy has like nutso body proportions. But and you mean to tell me that a guy who's that scantily clad with that many muscles, we just don't care? I think a lot of it does boil down to men and women. Again, I think that's another thing that SJWs don't want to contend with, is that the attitudes that men and women have towards that type of stuff might come into play. The feminists want to make it sound like, no, men and women think equally. It's like, not really. When a man sees athletes playing football or wrestling or basketball, there's no guilt. There's no, oh, that makes me feel bad because those people are like really muscular and I'm not that muscular. Therefore, I'm going to start my own basketball team with a bunch of fatzos running around.
Mhm.
Men don't think that way. We just think of, yeah, okay, that's cool.
Like,
Like, it doesn't concern me when I go to the mall and I see some Gucci male model who's shirtless on the wall. There's not a part of me that's like, oh, I feel bad because that emphasizes negative body imagery. I'm just like, good for that guy. That guy has washboard abs. Cool. I think there's something to be said about the way a lot of women react to it. There are some women who are like, I feel bad because I don't look like that. I eat a tub of Cheetos every day. I'm going to make it so that eating Cheetos is a positive thing. It's like, well, that's your problem. That's your prerogative. No one's making you feel that way.
Well, like for me, a couple things. All right. Let me get this comment out first. The way I look at it, most I do when I see a dude sitting there with all rippling pectorals and this, that, and the other, I'm just like, man, I need to get off my ass and actually do something. I'm going to get back to playing video games now. You know what I mean? Like that's the extent of where that goes. I don't dwell on it. And then and Jim pretty much summed it up with men determine their beauty by how women perceive them. Women determine their beauty by how other women perceive them. And it's like, yeah, that's really true. That's way true. It's like, I'm sorry, but what women fail to understand is you don't have to be a perfect 10 to have men wanting to sleep with you. Hell, you can be like a 2 and men will still want to sleep with you.
All you have to do is shake your tits and ass, and that's it. Men are very simple.
Exactly. But men, on the other hand, if you want to talk about who has to be looking, the best for women, men have to be like, gotta have their shit together, their own place, this, that, and the other. Have to be looking good, can't have really any flaws, or else woman's all like, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I'm happily married, so I guess I did okay.
There is actually a kind of a thesis behind that. Somebody wrote a thesis about one of the reasons why a lot of the modern as of the 1400s, a lot of the Christian nations adopted the model of one woman, one husband, because they wanted to give a playing field for everybody in the society. Because as it was in early history, more women tend to gravitate towards stronger, more powerful men. So it became the men who didn't have that ability became, not almost like a beta aspect of they couldn't get women and stuff like that. So really it became down to they couldn't provide for the thing, the herd, as to say. You know what I mean? So that was one reason. That was that kind of leveled into the playing field. Now I don't buy into that, but I do believe that you know, you do have to, guys have to, they have to kind of make themselves stand out. That's one of the reasons why guys use humor quite a lot, because women like humor. So there is a lot of aspects that guys have to single themselves out to get a woman's attention. Be it either they're nice or they're
well, even nice can be used against us now.
Well, yeah, now I'm talking about now, but in all honesty, women still like a nice guy, Yes, a lot of them do use that against us.
Air quotes, nice. They want a nice guy up until the point where they have the nice guy, and then they're like, oh, well, let me go back to the bad boy, because the bad boy, it's psychology. It goes back to our more baser instincts. Like you were talking about a minute ago, women are more attracted to the strong male, the more quote-unquote alpha types who can have the multiple women because they think that they can be the one that he will want. Doesn't matter if he's got 5, 6 other females already that he's sleeping with. They think that they can make him into that it's exclusively them, and then they get mad when it's not. Well, and then they try to say, oh, well, the nice guy just wants to sleep with them, when the majority of the nice guys I have known wanted companionship, and it was only a small group that was just looking to sleep with them using nice guy tactics. And let's be honest, those guys are not nice guys. Those guys are
dicks.
Yeah, they're one step shy of becoming rapists. Let's just be honest.
So I actually divide it into 2 separate categories. I divide it into white knights, and I divide it white knights and fedora tippers versus people of confidence. So I don't separate into nice guys versus bad guys. And the reason why is because you can be a nice guy who's confident, and women love that. Or you can be a bad guy who's confident, and women still like that. So whenever you have these white knights or fedora tippers, these are the guys who bend over backwards in the most transparent way to try and be nice to women. And they're the ones who throw the fit when women don't pay any attention to them. So in other words, they're not really nice guys. They're doing it because they're trying to get laid. Mm-hmm. So these are the male feminists. These are the ones who always say, I'm a male feminist. Women should be worshipped. They're queens. I love them. They're goddesses. No, you don't. You don't believe any of that. You just want to get laid, buddy. And I know you want to, because you're the type of person who later on will be like, women don't want me. They just want a bad boy. Well, if you're a nice guy, you don't care if you don't get laid. You're doing it because you are a nice person. You're doing it because you were raised to be chivalrous. You were doing it because you know that that's the right thing to do. Whenever I see women get together with the bad boy, it's not because the guy is bad. It's because the guy is confident. So typically, if this bad boy is sleeping around, the woman will say something like, oh my gosh, like you're a bad boy and you're sleeping around. And the guy's like, yeah, doll, that's what I do. I sleep around. And they're confident. Like they say it without stuttering. They say it without fidgeting, so that the woman knows, okay, this is a guy who I know he's bad, but I can at least trust him to be bad. I know that that's the way he acts and that's the way he carries himself. And am I okay with that? Yes or no? So they have to make a choice based on that. And it's the same thing with the nice guys I see. Like I always say that one of the best role models that you can have as a boy growing up is if you read To Kill a Mockingbird. Atticus Finch was considered for many generations to be kind of your quintessential man. He was kind, but he was tough. He was able to raise his 2 children on his own without a mother, but he did it with a strong but firm hand, and he was a nice guy. But when it came down to putting down a rabid dog, when it came down to doing manly things, he could do it with an air of confidence. And that's how for a while in American society, that's what men should be. I mean, that was definitely how men were to carry themselves. I always say, like, there's one thing that combines characters like your Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan the Barbarian types versus your James Bonds. You have James Bond, who isn't like bulk. He isn't as buffed up as like a Conan the Barbarian. But there's something about his swagger that combines him with, let's say, a Conan the Barbarian type, and that's confidence. They know that it doesn't it's not necessarily the degree of testosterone you have, it's how you carry yourself. That's what women want.
Oh yeah. Well, the reason why I pointed that out is because of the fact that, like, I'll admit, a buddy of mine went and tagged me in that, basically implying the latter about me, the derogatory term about me, and it's like, and it pissed me off because he knew, everyone knew. It was never about sex with me when I was a nice guy. Keyword there was. I'm going to get into that. It was always about the companionship. It was, I wanted something that was going to be, a woman that was going to be there 30 years from now. And then because of, the fact that I constantly got shat on, as the old expression goes, I developed the mentality of, if you can't beat them, join them. And I think that's what's happening with today's society. You're having a lot of because of the fact, and Gorgonite Emissary said it best, the male feminist, same as you, male feminist. Like, you said it, and then Gorgonite Emissary pops it up in chat. It's like, that is hilarious and almost coincidental. But for me, that's why you're seeing less nice guys, and you're seeing less guys willing to be nice to women. When I started to be a dick to women, that's when I started to have more, I guess you could say, choices in women than when I was being Mr. Meek, nice guy. And when you start being a dick to women, there does become a bit of, you get an air of confidence because you just don't care anymore. What's up, Sir Spoon? But, like, it's like you don't care anymore. You're just like, whatever. Fuck it.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a while, and I don't want to say it's being a dick. It's just you carry yourself in a way where when you don't really care about what other people think, and when you're honest, people like that, and it's both men and women.
Mhm.
I tend to surround myself with men who really don't care. They're not mean at all, but they're the type of person where it's like, they'll say something, and I'm like, oh, Susie over there, like, I don't think she liked what you said. And he's like, fuck her.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean to be rude, but that I don't think what I'm saying is offensive. No one else seems to have a problem, and if she has a problem with that, that's her problem, not mine. And it's not him trying to go out of his way to be offensive. It's just him being honest. And so it took me a while, but I remember, especially in my early college years, I was not good at talking to women because I was constantly almost so self-aware that it was like, no, you have to bend out of your way, and you have to go out of your way to do this, and regardless of what you think, just don't say it because that's going to be mean, and that's not what they want. And then at some point in my life, I just thought, no, the best thing to do is to be honest, to just do your own thing, and that's how you're going to find someone who accepts you for who you are. My wife doesn't mind me telling this story because she agrees with it. She thinks it was great. But what happened one time was, so my ex-girlfriend, she was very attractive physically, and she was like a fitness trainer. She used to dance professionally, and the thing that kind of strained our relationship was she would go out dancing with guys. Like, she would just go out dancing with various guys, and then sometimes she would just like not tell me. And after a while, that just puts a strain on your relationship because you have hearsay where it's like, I hear that so and so went out with so and so, and I saw them doing this, and you hear that enough times that it puts a lot of doubt and trust issues into your relationship. So anyway, what happened one time, it was like I think my wife and I, we were dating for about 3 weeks, and then my wife calls me, and then she was my girlfriend. She calls me and she was like, hey, I'm going out. And I was like, where are you going? And she was like, there's this function downtown, and it's like a salsa dance party, and I'm gonna go salsa dancing with so and so. And I was like, okay, but just so you know, if you go dancing, I'm just breaking up with you. And she was like, what? And I was like, I already told you that story. Like, my ex was a dancer. Like, she was a professional ballet ballroom dancer, and that ran into a lot of problems. Lots of hearsay going around. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to dancing, but it's like, I've already been down that road, and I'm just kind of tired of it. So no hard feelings. We've only been dating for 3 weeks. And so my wife was like, no, I'm not going to go dancing. Like, no, this isn't a big deal. I was like, okay, that's fine. And she said, she'll say to people, she's like, I like that because you put your foot down and you told me what you wanted and what you didn't want. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a matter of stay home, woman. It was a matter of, look, I've been burned in the past. It's not a road I want to go down again. But it's up to you. If you want to do it and you find a nice guy, sure, that's fine. No hard feelings. But I'm not going to put up with it. And so she was like, nah, I just made a choice right then and there. And she knows I'm not the type of person who puts a leash on her. I mean, I just said that's just one part of contention where I've done it before. I don't want to do it again. And she liked that. And that was not me being mean to her. That was me just saying it just as sure as I'm saying it to you guys right now. And that's the advice I give to a lot of people. It's like, if you have a hobby or if you have something that you like, don't let someone else dictate for you whether you should do it or not. It's going to hurt you in the long run, because the more you subjugate your own personal passions for someone else, the less you're going to have in terms of compatibility with the other person, and you're just going to be miserable your whole life, you know?
Oh yeah, no, I completely understand. But the whole point I was making, and I like that you pointed that out, because that's actually, I've had a situation like that where a female I was messing around with, I was like, you don't get more attached in what this is. She was like, what do you mean? I was like, look, I'm the guy on the side. That's the end of this. We don't get feelings involved, and so on and so forth. And she's like, but if I got feel, and this is how I knew feelings were already getting involved on her side. She was like, but if you told me you weren't interested in a relationship, that'd really destroy me. And it's like, then we need to stop doing what we're doing, because you obviously are already getting emotions involved when that was de facto the whole point of this. This is not an emotional thing. It was physical pleasure. That's it.
A little caveat on that: most women can't go into those types of things without emotions attached, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, this is after, like I said, I developed the personality of a dick, and yeah, a whole bunch of just drama. But
I'll be honest with you, though, I will echo Tim's. It is all about confidence on everything.
I understand that, but I was actually about to. I had something that, not on the subject.
Okay.
That was actually in chat that I was like, okay, they're trying to get back on the comics. And well, a couple things actually. I figure, do y'all want to go another 15 minutes and call it quits, or do y'all want to go longer?
Yeah, 15 minutes is fine.
Yeah.
All right. And then Numbing had asked to bring things in more space, or more fun space involving comics. I have a question. Y'all know the old school campy comics was that Council of Evil or whatever, the villain organizations to challenge the hero organization. Is there any plans for something like that for the Avengers or the manga universe? And with that, if you'll excuse me, I have to use the restroom real quick.
So I don't even know if I'm part of the Revengers or not. All I've seen from it is that apparently in that universe, Wall Might's the president, which I think is funny. I mean, I think that's great, and I signed off on that. Frankly, if anyone uses my character in their universe, as long as you're not killing them off or doing something that interrupts continuity, I don't mind at all. Like, I think that's really cool, and so far I haven't run into any problems that necessitate that. So I don't know. I'm all about shared universes. Most people know by now that we've been planning a Red Rooster and Black Ops shared universe for a while, because we just think that's the next thing to do. It's not enough to have solidarity between people who are with Comicsgate or even close to us. I think you need to start having crossovers, because it legitimizes it. We've had a couple with Rags that we've been talking about. I know Rags wants to do a Punchline Black Ops Rags comic, and I'm 100% down with that. I even told them, you write it and you draw it, and just give me a cut, and that's it. That is simple as that. But I'm all for it. I think that's really cool.
And I would agree with that. I mean, even if it's just like, because I would what I would love to do is just give a shout out to everybody in every project. Like, for instance, like in the next one, I told you about how, like, I wanted to have, like, our scientists actually have, like, Thump as a pet, but dressed like a rabbit, dressed up in the outfit and stuff like that, as a homage to to you, Tim. And that's her pet. While she's doing all this other stuff, and then there would be a picture of Wall Might in the background. We also have like Jack. We're gonna actually have this pirate go into this bar, and in the background you're going to see this TV movie playing, and it's Jack Irons.
Hello.
So,
Oh, okay. You were cutting out there for a second.
Oh, I said yeah. So sorry about that. I wasn't near my mic. I was actually kind of away from it. I said that I'm going to have the scientist in the Great White Threat. It's going to be the scientist's pet is going to be POTUS Thump, and because she's working with doing genetics and stuff like that. And then we're going to have a picture in the one bar scene in the next one where it's actually Captain Jack or Jack Irons on the TV screen as like it's a movie within the Sporkman universe.
No, that's really funny. And so I have to differentiate between Easter eggs and actual crossovers. My goal for the long term is actually have it where these are all in continuity with each other. So the part that I'm going to run into some difficulty with is I did talk to Rags, so Brian, and I did talk to Cody with Jack Irons. And for Trump Space Force, it is in continuity that they are part of Space Force. And Cody said, don't even worry about continuity. I will make it work because the Jack Irons character lends itself to that type of thing anyway, in terms of time and place. So just go ahead and put him in there. The hard part I'm going to run into is the continuity with Rags, because I am guessing that this is before the zombie invasion, because she's basically like a space marine. So that's kind of easy to work in there. But the problem with that is she also appears in My Hero Macadamia in the background. So was that just an Easter egg or is that continuity? Because in my head, it's all continuity. It all coexists in some way, shape, or form. So I haven't reconciled that, at least. So Brian might have to do that for me in terms of how all of this works out, because I have no idea how any of this actually manages to coexist. But I think that's pretty interesting. It's like the transient property. Red Rooster and Black Ops definitely coexist in the same world. Black Ops, the character, so USAGI, he appears in Trump Space Force, and if he's appearing in the same world inhabited by Rags and Jack Irons, by the transitive property, Jack Irons and Red Rooster exist in the same world. I don't know. It gets really convoluted when you think about it.
Yeah, well, and I kind of I kind of felt like Red Rooster and Sporkman would kind of exist in the same universe in a way, because of the type of character it is. But the thing is, I think what we decided, like on terms of Sporkman, is if we do any crossovers, there's the Sporkman universe where we do our own thing and stuff like that, and then there's kind of like we can create like a different universe option of Sporkman in a different thing, but it doesn't affect the main canon of our story. That's kind of the way we were going to go on.
Yeah, and the thing is, I just can't help thinking about it. Like, I don't see some of these things as Easter eggs. I just see them like, oh man, how does this exist in that universe? Like Wanpool, when Troy hit me up, he was like, hey, I'm going to put Thump in my book. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And he showed me it, in that universe, there's like a Thump plushie that says like, hey, I hope your heart keeps beating again, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in my head, I'm thinking to myself, what is Thump in that universe? Is he like the president? So is it like this weird world where the rabbit is actually the president of the United States? Because so the way that Mark and I are seeing Thump is that it's kind of like in The Great Mouse Detective. You have the human characters, like you really have like a Queen of England, but then you have like their weird animal counterparts who live under Windsor Castle. So it's basically like the Queen of England, but as a mouse. So I think to myself, like, the way I thought about Thump was the rabbit counterpart to the president. Now, in the book Thump, we never discussed that Trump was a real character. There's a Melania, but we actually never showed Trump. So what we did with My Hero Macadamia, we're kind of insinuating that, no, they come from a world where Wall Might is the president and Thump is the character that resides under the White House or in the White House, like the president of rabbits, essentially. But if this is the same world as Wanpool, man, this is like deepest lore,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's weird because like Wall Might's the president, but Thump is like the president of animals in that world, and it's the same world where Wanpool is there and Rags is there. Uh, so the only way I can reconcile this is I'm gonna have to talk to Brian about it. The way I see it is that there's actually two Reginas. There's the alternate reality Regina that lived in the world of Donald Trump, where she is a Space Force pilot. And then there's the comic Regina, the protagonist of Rags, who is fighting a zombie apocalypse, but is an alternate reality where Wall Might is the president. And that makes the most sense because it's the Antarctic Press universe.
Yeah.
This is so cool, but there needs to be like a character Bible.
I think there's a little bit of overthinking too.
I could probably
What'd you say?
propose a
There's
solution.
a little bit of overthinking.
Yeah.
I could probably propose the solution.
Okay.
My character, one of the things that he's working on, because of the fact that I was wanting to be able to do crossovers with everyone, I was like, well, being the fact that he is in a very particular world, all right, where you have pretty much he's trying to prevent the apocalypse. It's very biblical, so on and so forth. So he created a way to travel between dimensions. And the problem is, though, is that thing keeps breaking down. So he has these periods where he's either, stuck in a different dimension and things like that. This is kind of something, it's a retool of an idea I had to be able to branch out from just the core story and be able to tell more superhero comic style stories early on. So it's just a retool of that. What you could do is have it to where he picks up these different people and they're kind of going around the multiverse with him. Like Regina, Thump, things like that. That may be an option. Sporkman, that might be something that may be useful as an explanation as to how all these various people exist.
Yeah, and coexist.
Exactly.
It hurts the head to think about it. I like it though. In my head, it's so funny because I don't like Grant Morrison at all as a writer. But the one thing that of his I do give him credit for is he writes Batman as if all the stuff that's happened in Batman's canon actually happened. So he doesn't retcon anything out. To him, it all occurred. And it's just you, the reader, and him, the writer, trying to justify how all of these things coexist together. And I'm kind of the same way. I look at it and I'm like, no. In my head, if Thump and Wall Might and USAGI are real characters, then their interactions with people have to be real too. How in the world does all of this happen? So, Brian, if you're listening, you need to justify how Regina coexists in the world of Wall Might and Trump at the same time, because there can't be two Trumps. It's like Time Cop. You can't coexist and touch. You gotta have two separate ones, and Wall Might and Trump are not exactly the same character.
Well, that's why I said my character, because of the fact that to work around the very specific nature of his story, because his main he has two powers. He is a telekinetic. And he has divine intelligence, basically. The knowledge of the universe he has, because that's what he did in quote-unquote heaven, in the fourth dimension. He was the keeper of secrets. All knowledge was entrusted to him. That which needed to be protected from man, he protected from man. It was his job to keep man from discovering it. Well, with that allows the ability for him to be able to, because of that, he can build any machine. And so the whole idea was, because I knew very quickly that it'd be you'd be stuck in specific stories that I could do with him. To widen up, I basically made it to where he goes on this big journey to basically just in between the dimensions and everything, just having fun. And that's how I was going to justify a lot of the superhero stories that I tell with him. Whatever it's not something dealing with the main events going on in the story. He's off using his invention to travel the multiverse. I think, like I said, it could be retooled, and it could be like he picked up Sporkman and Jack Irons and Regina, and that could even be how the Revengers got formed. There you go. Like, just a retool of that idea for that exact purpose. Because I am eventually, hopefully, going to get a job so I can afford an artist where I can have the Indiegogo out this spring to actually get the story, the comic out.
Well, good luck on that.
Yeah, see, the way I envisioned, I kind of got a different route. Have you guys ever watched Jet Li's The One?
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that movie.
So I look at the multiverse that way. I look at there is a Sporkman in every universe, but he's a slight variation of that universe. You know what I mean? It's not the same Sporkman in the different universe. So that's kind of how the way I envision Sporkman. So anybody who, as long as if you plan on using Sporkman in that universe, first off, like you said, Tim, I gotta give the okay, and I gotta get the rights and stuff like that. But something's got to be signed. But at the same point, I'm like, yes, you can use it, as long as it's within the route of how I want Sporkman to be. But I give you a little bit licensed creativity. You know what I mean? So, I see Sporkman as being Sporkman. In our comic continuity does not interfere with Revengers at all. Like, it's a completely different Sporkman in that universe. So, now the origins are still kind of the same a little bit, but that's just me. That's just how I look at it.
I'm gonna be really interested to see how these things start getting unified after time. Like, for example, with we're already starting on Black Ops 2. We hired Matt Weldon to do our concept art. So what we're doing with Black Ops Volume 2 is it's actually going to be a bit of a soft reboot, so that people who did not read issues 1 and 2 don't have to worry too much. We're gonna really simplify his origin within the first page. We're just gonna say an atomic blast. It doesn't matter where or when, but that's really what did it. But we like Matt Weldon's art that he did for it, because he actually, the irony about it was, I didn't want to draw USAGI to look like my rabbit, because that would be a little bit too personal and people would see that as a self-insert. So I made him look like a rabbit that I don't own. But Matt Weldon, whether it was intentional or not, he actually drew his version of USAGI to look like mine. He looks a lot more scruffy, a lot more ragged, has a lot more fur on him, but we love it.
I love it. Yeah.
It looks so good. I mean, he almost looks like, not even a rabbit, he almost looks like a baby wolf with long ears. And he submitted the concept art this morning for Patriotter and for his version of USAGI, and we just think it's great. But one thing that we're excited about for next year, so Hair Trigger isn't going to be just like one comic or two. It's going to be a full graphic novel, like 88 pages plus a backup story.
Nice.
And what we're going to like about it is, now that people know that we are definitely in the same working universe as Red Rooster, we get to play with each other's IPs. So, for example, in the Red Rooster universe, you have Kapow Cola, and you have like the Order of the Dawn. So we're going to put those things in the book where, every time someone pops a soda, it's going to be Kapow Cola, just to show, like, no, this all takes place in the same cohesive universe. Because one thing that I'm actually not that big of a fan of is, I'm not really a big fan of multiverses, because in my opinion, it kind of strips down and it dilutes your prime character, the character that you should be focusing attention on. I like shared universes a lot more, because I just think it's more fun to think that all these people operate in the same universe, but they're all doing their own thing. So there's not that much crossover in it. So I just think it's really funny, like, if Sporkman were to have like his own line of like ramen noodles or something, that it'd be like, enjoy Sporkman ramen noodles, and it pops up on television. But it's like, that's really cool, because like it is the same universe, so of course you'd be seeing stuff like that, no problem.
Or the eating utensil in the universe is all sporks.
Yeah, exactly. and,
Oh, boy.
and you don't bat an eye. Like, that's just understood, People will be like, why is every utensil in this world sporks? And it's like, that's just how it is. And if you're an eagle-eyed viewer, it's like, no, it's like that because there's a universe of Sporkman. Oh, okay. It's like, I tell this to people, and there's some people who don't know it. So if you're listening, and you don't know this, I'm just saying it for you, but it's like most people don't realize that essentially Ninja Turtles and Daredevil are a shared universe, because the accident that Matt Murdock prevented actually led to the birth of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had my mind blown when someone pointed that out to me. And so in my head, that makes that world more robust, because I'm thinking to myself, even though Daredevil is off camera in 99.9% of all Ninja Turtles comics, there is that part of my mind that's just intrigued that, no, somewhere out there with Ninja Turtles fighting Shredder, somewhere out there is the Hand and Daredevil running around too. You don't see him, but he's out there. I don't know. That just makes part of knowing that comics world a lot more robust for me.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's 8:02. We went past the 15-minute mark, but that's okay. I figure I'll go ahead and let y'all give your closing pitches. I'll start with Matt because he's the furthest left on my screen.
And also said the least, I guess. But haven't talked about this at all in the stream, but I've got sci-fi comic project, McKinnon Chronicles. I think the highlight of the week was getting Edwin Boyette to refer to it on a stream, and then just go, "Con!"
Yeah, that was dope.
Nice.
If I don't make it, well, at least I managed to do that.
All right. Next up, it's Spork.
Hey guys, I'm Sporkman or Chuck from Sporkman Studios. We have our Indiegogo kicking off here in less than 9 days for Sporkman Goes to Japan. Appreciate everybody will support. Next week we are going to be doing a Sporkman Indiegogo kind of review launch, so that way everybody can see what the Indiegogo will have to offer. So you guys are invited to either watch. Tim, if you wanted to come on, you're more than welcome to. And we're going to basically, it's also going to be combined with one of our Patreons, Ninja. He is going to be in there for the first time since he loves independent comics and supports them. So, but yeah, go ahead and my project is available. We also do have conventions, which is available at Comic Central for $2.99, or you can get the black and white for 99 cents.
All righty.
That's great.
And next up, it's the Tim.
So this has been me, Timothy Lim. I am the artist / creator / co-creator of My Hero Macadamia and Black Ops. Black Ops is our flagship character. That is the title that we're going to be focusing on, at least for the foreseeable future. You can pick up issues 1 and 2 at your local comic book store or online at Antarctic Press. The current Indiegogo campaign that I have running right now is I am the artist on Trump Space Force with Chuck Dixon, Dave Dorman, and Brett Smith. That is running until tomorrow. So if you haven't jumped on board, now is going to be your last chance. We are not going to be turning it into an online store because I want fulfillment to occur right away so we can ensure a Thanksgiving and Christmas delivery. So get on board while you still can. I do appreciate everyone who is listening. Thank you very much to the Meaning of the Mimes and Bob Dolbot here and Sporkman and Matt for joining me. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to our next one.
It's been a great pleasure for me as well.
As always, Tim, love your work.
Definitely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And you know what? I'll go ahead and go character one last time.
Oh boy.
All right, America. You've been watching Meaning of the Minds with some good soy-free American patriots. We've had Matt here being quiet, but he's a strong, stoic type. Because when you don't have soy passing through your lips, you don't need to talk all the time. Then we've had Borkman here, strong, soy-free superhero that just goes out there and fights crime, but does it with a spork. That's ingenuity, America. That's what the soy and being soy-free does. It makes you be creative. Then we've had POTUS Stump here, one of the few proud anthropomorphic rabbits that's president of all the animals, but he doesn't let any soy pass through his lips either, because he knows that soy will make animal kind weak as well. And he knows that he had the ability to help prevent the Reticulous 9 invasion led by Bendis and his CB Savolsky bot. Now, thank you, America. Bob Jones, signing off.
That was beautiful.